Afternoon, round 12 of the Formula One World Championship, and conditions are perfect for the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix in little more than 20 minutes from now. Damon Hill may have a 21-point lead in the World Drivers' Championship, but the opposition are conceding nothing. That was clear yesterday when Michael Schumacher put in another of his committed qualifying laps. It gave him his 4th pole position of the season. Damon Hill mounted a late challenge, but clearly Ferrari are getting back to form. Damon knows he'll face a real battle this afternoon. He'll especially need a good start. His starts at Silverstone and Hockenheim were not the greatest.
No, they certainly weren't. But I've got an added problem here, in that I'm now on the dirty part of the track, and this circuit is notoriously dusty and dirty, and the part of the track that I'm on for the start is used hardly at all during the running, so I've got an even more difficult task of getting off the line now.
Well, here's a bit of encouragement or discouragement for you. Nigel Mansell started from 12th on the grid in 1989 and won the race. Thierry Boutsen started from pole and won the race.
Yeah, right. So I think historically it's still very possible to win the race from second on the grid. I'm not unhappy about that. I think front row is the vital thing, and tactics will play a part. I think if I was 12th on the grid, I wouldn't feel quite so optimistic, but I'm not. So yeah, it's a good place.
He's on the front row then, but he's on pole position in terms of the championship. A 21-point lead over his Williams teammate Jacques Villeneuve, who's qualified 3rd fastest. 4 races remain after this one. It's a strong championship position for Damon Hill, but he can be caught. By contrast, the Constructors' Championship pretty certain to be returning to Williams. If they can add a mere 2 points this afternoon to their already massive total, they are champion constructors once again. Well, the 2 Williams cars on the 1st and 2nd rows, but so are the 2 Ferraris. Eddie Irvine in 4th, confirming the progress that Ferrari are making. And all Benetton's 3rd row, and those grid positions are vital with overtaking so difficult on the tight Hungaroring circuit. And that's where we go now to join Tony Jardine, Jonathan Palmer and Murray Walker.
And welcome to a boiling Hungaroring, boiling in terms of heat and boiling in terms of passion, because Michael Schumacher is in pole position. And there's the biggest crowd I've seen here since 1986, which was the first time that the Hungarian Grand Prix was held after the war, when 200,000 people came here. It was still an Iron Curtain country. There were 20,000 Russian troops in Budapest, and they welcomed the opportunity to get in on the Western scene. Well, you can see from the campsite alone there, and from the crowd itself, how many people have turned out here, and a very high proportion of them are Schumacher fans. They want to see their man win in a dry race as opposed to the wet one that he won in Spain. The weather could hardly be better. The circuit, as you've heard from Steve, is a very difficult one. It's 2.5 miles long, and Damon Hill is starting from the dirty side of the track. Let's hear what Tony Jardine has got to say with Damon.
7 wins, 7 pole positions so far, just a whisker away from pole, but still on the front row here, Damon. A great racing prospect, but you're on the dirty side of the grid. Schumacher's alongside you. It's very important to try and get through that first corner ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad you spotted that there, Tony. I'm on the worst side of the grid here. The track doesn't get used, and it's very difficult to get off the line and onto the clean line at the start. So it means I have to go all the way down to the first corner, which picks dirt up on the tyres. So I'm really praying for a good start, so I can, you know, I'd have to make a very good start indeed in order to get ahead of.
That was Irvine.
Yeah, might have guessed. To get ahead of Michael.
Overtaking is very, very difficult. I know you'll be trying hard to get into the lead there, but if you're not, do you think you might be tempted to settle for points given the constructors in the World Championship?
Well, I have to think about points. You know, I have to think about finishing these races because the championship is still undecided. Myself and Jacques are fighting it out, and I have to finish ahead of him. But you know, my main concern is to try and win the race. You know, that's all I'm thinking about at the moment, is how we're going to beat Michael, who is currently ahead of us.
Tyre wear is very high here, so are you going to be nursing them a bit?
Well, no, I mean, we've got the ability to run to the maximum of the tyres and choose one of two options, which is a 2-stop race or a 3-stop race.
Have a great race.
Okay.
He's a hard man to interview before the race, is Damon Hill. 2 years ago, he wound Tony Jardine up by giving monosyllabic answers to all Tony's questions. This year he says, I'm glad you spotted that, Tony, to the obvious thing that he's starting from the dirty side of the track. But it's no laughing matter for Damon Hill. It's going to be difficult because Michael Schumacher, who is his chief rival here, is on the clean side of the track in pole position. And Damon's secondary rival, and not so secondary either, Jacques Villeneuve, is also on the clean side, starting from 3rd on the grid. Strategy, of course, is going to be absolutely essential here to get it right. We're expecting a lot of the people, in fact most of them, as they did last year, to stop 3 times, and everybody is wondering, and a lot of people are hoping, that we're going to see a Ferrari revival here. There have been so many literally false starts, with 7 failures from the last 8 starts in Canada and the succeeding races, and Ferrari have been working very hard, and it would seem that so far anyway they have got it right. Michael Schumacher did extremely well in all the preceding sessions to the qualifying session, took pole position. It could just as easily have been Damon Hill or Jacques Villeneuve, because there was only a whisker separating the 3 of them. And Villeneuve, I should remind you, is driving here in a race for the first time. And another man who's done extremely well is Johnny Herbert with the new Ford Zetec engine. 8th on the grid, it's his highest. There he is with Tony Jardine.
Best grid position of the year for you, Johnny Herbert. You must be very, very pleased.
Yeah, no, it's good to come, especially here, especially getting 8th on the grid here is very important because the passing is very difficult. But, you know, we've made a step in the right direction with the engine. It's found, for me, has made the car much more drivable, and you can feel where the car, or you're going to put the car into the corner. So, you know, it's paid dividends.
You've also achieved a very good balance on the car for the first time.
Yeah, I would say the main thing is we've got a good balance in the car, but with that we've got the engine improvement, which has, I don't know, worked with it as well, and then it's just given me an even better balance and being able to carry the speeds and get the time.
A tough track here at Hungary, but you've said that there's no respite at all on any lap.
No, that's its biggest downfall. We don't get any rest at all, so it's going to be very physically very hard. It's quite warm at the moment, and it's going to be 110% giving it one from the first lap, so it's going to be very, very physical.
Now, we were talking last night, and you said this hasn't come at a bad time of year, considering the job situation for 97.
Yeah, no, it's come at a good time. It's good with, you know, all the rumours with Heinz-Harald and Damon going about from the last race, and then it's good to actually pop one in and say, well, hey, what about me as well? Don't forget about me. So far it's gone well, and I'm happy that I've done it here, and I've done it in a good time of the year as well.
You still can't have a Williams though.
No, I know, but there you go. I'm just thinking about it.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks.
Must remind him to stand a bit closer to the razor on race day in future. Johnny Herbert then, talking about the rumours. You all know the one about Heinz-Harald, Frentzen and Damon Hill. It's wearing a bit thin now. Damon is studiously ignoring it and staying cool. The latest one that's boiling round the Hungaroring is Sean Alesi for Jordan next year. But we'll see. Meantime, we have got the Hungarian Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, the Portuguese Grand Prix, and of course the final one. And if you're wondering if I was right in saying Jordan, yes, I was right. That is the rumour. But let's get back to today, and let's get back to what was mentioned briefly in that interview with Damon Hill. We've talked about how difficult it is to pass here, and yes, it is. But Nigel Mansell proved for Ferrari in 1989 but it's not impossible to do the seemingly impossible, because his car was clearly not going to get pole position. He concentrated on race setup. He started from 12th on the grid, and then he magnificently passed Ayrton Senna to take the lead and go on and win the race. But the following year, Thierry Boutsen took pole position, the Belgian driver in his Williams, and stolidly stayed on the racing line, resisting the non-stop pressure at the end of the race from Ayrton Senna to win. Well, now, here's Damon Hill's chance to get his own back on Eddie Irvine, because Eddie can see his Ferrari cap flying, potentially. Tony, what's he got to say?
Eddie, best grid position for you since Australia. Things are looking up, aren't they?
I don't know whether they are or not. One swallow doesn't make a summer, but at least I'm at the sharp end here, and qualifying is very important here. It's very difficult to overtake on the wrong side of the track, but it's, you know, we'll see.
Perhaps a good battling prospect with your old sparring partner from Japan, Villeneuve, just over there.
Yeah, well, Jacques been making pretty good starts this year. He's screwed up a few times, so hopefully he screws up today and I get ahead of him.
Eddie, what is the situation? Have they confirmed you for next year for Ferrari?
Oh, aye. Yeah.
Must be a feel-good factor.
I was told several months ago I'd be staying, so it wasn't really an issue.
Have a great race.
No problem.
No problem. Let's hope it isn't. Eddie Irvine has had a difficult time with Ferrari because he's had very little testing. But in spite of that, he was 4th fastest on Friday. He was 5th fastest yesterday morning in the free session. He improved on that by qualifying 4th, his 2nd best grid position of the year for Ferrari. And talking about the Ferrari revival then, we have Schumacher in pole position, his teammate Eddie Irvine on the 2nd row of the grid. It's looking good. There's David Coulthard. Not so good for him. He's only 9th on the grid, and his teammate Mika Hakkinen ahead of him in the McLaren, some in 7th position, both on the good side of the circuit, which is very important, as you've repeatedly heard. Let's hear what David Coulthard's got to say about it. Tony Jardine.
David, 2nd here last year, 2nd at Monte Carlo earlier in the season, but it hasn't gone that well so far in Hungary.
No, we've struggled with the long corners on this circuit, a bit like Barcelona, and that's meant that obviously we're down the grid a little bit, but we just need to try and keep out of trouble and see if we can score some points.
Overtaking's very difficult here, but you've got to do that today, clearly. How bad is it offline? How dirty is the track?
This circuit's very dusty and dirty, and as you can see, it's very windy now, so that's blowing a lot of dust on the track. And I have to say, if you can't see much overtaking in Hockenheim, you're not going to see much here.
Well, what about your prospects for points today? You're going to stick there and hope that they drop out?
Well, if I can't overtake them, I'm going to have to hope for that, because I'm 9th on the grid. So, you know, we've had good reliability recently, so hopefully that'll see us through to get some points.
Have a great race.
Thanks very much.
Incidentally, we all came to Budapest, which everybody who comes here absolutely adores, believing that the 1996 Hungarian Grand Prix was going to be the last. The indications are that this is not the case. There are very strong rumours that the Hungarian Grand Prix will be run next year, possibly on the date that was allocated to the Portuguese Grand Prix, in which case we wonder what's going to happen to Portugal. But I emphasise that that is a long, long way from being official. Meantime, everybody is making the most of what they hope and expect to be a great race, because passing is difficult. It means to, excuse me, it means to say that there is a lot of nose-to-tail racing during the whole race, and people looking for an opportunity to get by. Grip, of course, is very much at a premium here. That involves tyres, and Jonathan Palmer has been looking into that for us.
Tyres are easily taken for granted, but they're critical to the car's performance. These are the tyres of a Grand Prix car, and we can see straight away just how big they are. This is the front tyre, and it's about twice the width of that of a normal road car. The rear tyre is about 3 times the width. But these, of course, are the slick tyres, the smooth rubber used for dry conditions. Should the track be wet, you need grooves to dissipate the water, and that's what this is, a rear wet weather tyre. In terms of tread depth, The wet weather tyres have about 8 millimetres, and that's about the same as the depth of a normal road car tyre. The slick tyre has a much shallower tread. In fact, it is just 2.5 millimetres deep, and the teams can see how far worn it is through these little holes across the circumference. They start at 2.5 millimetres, but once they're worn down to just 1 millimetre, the tyres are effectively finished and have to be replaced. The tyre pressures are much softer than those of a normal road car, which might run at about 30 pounds per square inch. The Grand Prix fronts being 23 psi and the rears 18. This means that about half of the car movement up and down over bumps takes place from the squashing of the tyres, as well as the compressing of the springs. Compounds are absolutely critical, and by this we mean just how soft or how hard the rubber is. The harder the rubber, the harder the compound, the more durable will be the tyre, although it'll produce less grip. Goodyear have the A compound being the hardest, whilst the D is the softest, which has the most grip but wears out fastest, and that is what is used here at Hungary. Now, whilst these soft tyres have a great deal of grip, there are various downsides. This is one of the tyres off Pedro Diniz's Ligier when he spun yesterday, and the soft rubber immediately blistered, rendering the tyre useless. Little pieces of rubber also come flying off, and these build up to form the marbles that we'll see gradually accumulate off the racing line. But the most important downside is the sheer wear rate. A new set of tyres will last between 15 and 25 laps, so 2 to 3 pit stops. And at £1,600 a set, that means that £6,500 of tyres could be used in just 200 miles of racing.
Well, there he is, Damon Hill, second on the grid for his 63rd Grand Prix. He started from pole position 18 times. Michael Schumacher has started, or will have started, 14 times when he gets away from the Hungarian Grand Prix. And Damon, during the warm-up, was deliberately going offline and racing down the right-hand side of the track in order to disturb the dust on his starting line down to the first corner as much as possible in an effort to clear the track, and he will very much be hoping that that is the case. Jonathan, you've been beavering ever since the warm-up stopped. What news have you got?
Well, first, the race here at Hungary has 3 critical phases. The first one's already taken place, and that's qualifying to determine just where the cars start, of course, on the grid. And we've heard a lot about this dirty line. In fact, in the olden days, we used to have cars always starting off, being in pole position, being assumed to be the best place on the inside of the track, on the inside for the first corner. Now, here at Hungary, pole position's on the outside, because it's since been realised, in fact, that the track is most grippy wherever the line goes, and that's why we're seeing Schumacher on the outside for the first corner, but then he's got the grip. But the second phase that's going to be critical is the start, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens there. And the third bit that's critical is the pit stops, and if anybody doubts just how wonderful having pit stops in Formula One is, they're going to really find out now, because in the course of this race we're going to see either 2 or 3 pit stops. The fastest way of completing these 77 laps is going to be from 3 stops, but the problem with making 3 stops is that if you get held up behind somebody ahead who's making 2, you're going to lose that valuable time, and therefore we may see some people going for 2 stops.
Round 12 of the 1996 Formula One World Championship in Hungary. Damon Hill leads by 21 points from his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, but starts second on the grid with Michael Schumacher hoping to lead a Ferrari revival. There's one thing that we haven't mentioned that could affect this critical start. You've heard about the dirty side of the track, the clean side of the track, the traffic during the race, but what you haven't heard of is the fact that Michael Schumacher is a bit concerned about the clutch in his Ferrari. It has given trouble in the past at the start. It was replaced by another make, which has proved to be better, and he's hoping it's going to continue to stay that way. So down the grid, you see the Benettons only on the 3rd row of the grid. The top McLaren is Mika Häkkinen. Extremely good for Johnny Herbert in 8th place. Not so good for Coulthard down in 9th. And Herbert has out-qualified his teammate Frentzen. Martin Brundle has out-qualified his teammate Rubens Barrichello, and Katayama has out-qualified his teammate Mika, who is only 16th on the grid in the Tyrrell. Verstappen has, as we expected, out-qualified Riccardo Rosset, both of them in the Footwork Arrows cars, and Giovanni Lavaggi, the newcomer to Grand Prix racing after his appearance last year, has qualified the Minardi. All 20 will be starting.
So let's just take a look to see what's happened to our regular pecking order of pace from qualifying. Well, Ferrari are at the front, of course, Schumacher's 4th pole position this year, and I think that's come from a couple of things. Firstly, the fact that Ferrari have undoubtedly made progress, and we can see that because of Irvine's 4th place too. But there is no doubt that Schumacher is still in a class of his own when it comes to extracting the absolute maximum out of a Grand Prix car, and his lap was truly fantastic. It was one that left his own teammate Eddie Irvine in absolute awe of his ability. He was 1.4 seconds faster than Irvine, and when I spoke to Eddie, he just said that he makes up the time everywhere, particularly on the entry to the fast corners. The Williams' pairing of Hill and Villeneuve, well, they were at it all weekend. Villeneuve's been truly impressive in the way that on his first visit here to this quite tricky circuit, he's got right on terms with Damon straight away, but Damon ultimately just had the upper hand, though wasn't too pleased with his own qualifying lap, and I think he feels that he could have been on pole position. It would have merely taken him another 0.07 of a second to achieve it. Further back, we've seen Benetton in a little bit of trouble really here. They looked a lot closer to Williams at Hockenheim, but I feel that was probably because 3/4 of the Hockenheim circuit is effectively a drag strip with acceleration runs, and the power-to-weight ratio of the Benetton, of course, is the same as that of the Williams with the same engine in the car. So I think we've seen Benetton slip back a little bit here. And the same for McLaren. Here is a circuit where power is not particularly important, immensely twisty, no significant straights. What you need to go quickly is grip, and grip comes from not just the tyres, as we heard about, but the suspension and particularly the aerodynamics. If you take a typical corner that can be gone around at, say, 60 miles an hour in a road car, it would be 85 miles an hour in a Grand Prix car with no wings. With the wings, 130 miles an hour. So you can see just how much difference having all of that grip makes. Herbert going very well indeed. Ford have a new engine here. They have more power, but they also have made the engine pull better as the drivers are coming out of the corners, and it's great to see Herbert up there, but a dismal showing, it has to be said, from the Jordan team, who really are quite concerned to know just where the problem is, because they're getting now to the time designing the new car for next year, and currently they haven't worked out what's wrong with this one.
Well, the favourite has to be Michael Schumacher. His driving ability, combined with the Ferrari, which has been comfortably quickest in several of the sessions, indicates that he's a very likely winner. But the big question mark is it going to be reliable? It's only had one finish from the last 8 starts. That was Schumacher's 4th position at Hockenheim, and he wasn't very happy about that in front of his home crowd. An enormous number. There's some 40,000 Germans here, and incidentally there is still an 18-kilometer log jam on the motorway approaching the circuit trying to get in, and you can see how many people there are here already. So the Hungarian Grand Prix is well and truly on the map in what would appear not to be its last year. Schumacher on the right of your picture, pole position. On the left is Damon Hill, who is a bit tardy getting away on the formation lap.
But what he is doing is laying down some rubber, as he did at Hockenheim, to make sure that he gets the best chance. Now, this is the longest straight. It's not long. It's only 800 meters. You see the black lines breaking down into this turn 1. This is a possible overtaking point during the race. Michael Schumacher particularly has gone around the outside in some absolutely sensational maneuvers. Then down into this next left-hander, you can see just how tortuous this circuit is. But let's also just reflect on starting form, which has become ever more important, as clearly overtaking on the track is so difficult. Well, Schumacher is concerned about his clutch, but then he thinks that they have made some progress on the clutch. But having said that, Schumacher has never made a really good start this year. He's only ever gone backwards on the grid or stayed where he is, where indeed Damon Hill, actually, the same has to be said for him. But then Hill has been on pole 7 times. But the person we need to look out for, I think, is Jacques Villeneuve, back on 3rd place. He's on the right side of the grid. He knows that his chances of actually winning here are going to come from trying to get an absolute catapult start and getting ahead of his own teammate, because of course he's got to beat Hill to keep any championship hopes alive. And then further back from that, Jean Alesi, right behind Villeneuve, is going to be on our right hand side as we look at this field. Look for the Benetton. He's made these blistering starts too, up from 5th to 7th for the last 2 Grand Prix. That's at Silverstone and at Hockenheim, so he's going to be well worth looking out for. Coming around now, this is down through the right-hander, left-hand hairpin down to 60 miles an hour as they come back up to the grid. Now, when they come up and we get a head-on view of the cars pulling up towards their grid positions, again, expect to see them all in single file and then pulling out at the last minute, swerving to the right, their right. Those cars that are going to be on this dirty side, that's going to be on our left, because they're going to want to keep those tyres as clean as they possibly can all the way up to taking their grid spot. That's the pit entry lane. You can see beyond those dotted lines. This is the last corner, a third gear right-hander. Everybody's tyres warmed up, brakes warmed up, and that is pretty crucial around here. They will be driving around, or they will have been driving around with their left foot resting on the brake pedal, certainly giving it jabs. You can see them keeping to the left there. Look at them peeling across to their right, taking their grid spots at the appropriate time.
So watch the lights when they all go out. The 77 lap 190-mile Hungarian Grand Prix will start. On the right of your picture, the front of the grid is Schumacher, on the left is Damon Hill.
And it is go! Schumacher does get a good start. Villeneuve gets ahead of Hill, and Alesi is doing it again. He comes right up alongside Damon Hill into turn one. Is he going to take the Englishman? Yes, he has. So Damon Hill has lost places at the start. Schumacher leads. Villeneuve is up into second place from third on the grid. Alesi is up into third position. Down to fourth goes Damon Hill, and Schumacher has got a clear track ahead of him all the way. There was a spinner there. I'm sorry I didn't spot who it was, but we'll soon find out. But meantime, Schumacher has got a clear track in front of him, and Jacques Villeneuve, racing in Hungary for the first time, is right behind the Ferrari. That wasn't what we expected, but it's what we got. And Alesi, Hill, Eddie Irvine is in fifth position, and it is a Tyrrell, and it's Mika Salo. Mika Salo out of the race at the start, and he's involved with Pedro Diniz, obviously. Diniz spinning out, and that is on the left-hander at turn 2. And the Brazilian spins the Ligier back into the race, but Salo is out. And Alesi is still ahead of Hill as Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, to the delight of the crowd, comes through to complete the first lap, and over the line he goes. Villeneuve in second position, so it is Ferrari, Williams, Alesi is third, Hill down to fourth, Irvine is fifth, Berger is sixth, Häkkinen is seventh, and in eighth position is Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert in eighth position with that improved Ford Zetec V10 engine. It's much more drivable here than it was in Hockenheim, and he's certainly making the most of it. And so now there is Schumacher. See the brake discs glow red as he brakes. This is the highest part of the course, turn 5 into the turn right-hander through the chicane, and it's a very twisty section here. This was not the Ferrari's strong point in qualifying yesterday, but they've obviously made changes to the car. Pedro Diniz touring into the pit lane to have his car looked at, or maybe to retire. Look at the way, the crab track way that he's coming in, as the gap between Villeneuve second, Alesi third, is seemingly increasing. Michael Schumacher, Villeneuve, Alesi, Hill is the order. Irvine behind him, Berger is in sixth place, Häkkinen, and down the straight towards us they come. Ferrari, Williams, Benetton.
Well, of course, that was a perfect start for Michael Schumacher. He made everything work absolutely right for him on that grippy side of the track. But Jacques Villeneuve did what we wondered. He came right up through, and that's going to be a major boost to his championship chasing. While on the other hand, Damon Hill's going to have real problems, because not just as he dropped back and got behind his second place on the grid, he's also behind John Alesi. And the Benetton's Mika Salo climbs up out of his car, up the bank and into retirement. And Pedro Diniz looks like he's into retirement too. So that's 2 out, 18 to go. But coming back to Damon Hill's problems, the Benetton is not just relatively slow around here, it was the second off the pace of the Williams cars in qualifying, but it's also possible that Jarno could be one of the drivers to go for a two-stop strategy, and if Damon Hill was on for a 3, he's going to find it very, very difficult to get by the Benetton of Alesi, and he's going to drop back. Just look how much that's happening already. Alesi is dropping back at probably 2 seconds a lap from Jacques Villeneuve, and despite that, I really don't see how Damon Hill's going to get by Alesi for certainly the next 20 or so laps, or until Alesi comes in for his first fuel stop. Major blow for Damon Hill's chances of winning this race, and I'd say that it looks pretty slim, even by lap 2.
And just about 1.5 seconds between Schumacher and Villeneuve as they complete the lap. So as far as Williams is concerned, and they only need to get a few points to clinch their 8th Constructors' World Championship here at the Hungaroring, it looks as though their lead man, well, it doesn't look as though he is, their lead man is Jacques Villeneuve. And it's quite an incredible drive by the young Canadian already, when you remember that this is only his 12th Grand Prix.
Yes, he really has got the art of starting better sorted out, it has to be said, than Damon Hill, because he's actually made up places off the grid 6 times so far this year, as opposed to none for Damon, although we shouldn't forget, of course, that Damon's often been in pole, therefore he really can't make up much of a place. But nevertheless, his control on the clutch, getting those revs absolutely right, has been spot on many times. And the problem that Damon has had over these last 2 Grand Prix, and possibly even here, but we do know that this time he had a problem with the amount of grip on the track, is that he's let the engine, as we call it, bog down. He hasn't used enough revs, and when the clutch is fully engaged, the engine is well away from its power peak of 16,000 revs, perhaps down to 8 or 9,000, and he's got much less power down there, maybe as little as 300-400 horsepower, allowing those who've got more wheel spin, keeping the engine higher in the rev band, to surge away, with power outputs being kept much closer to the optimum of 700.
So here is Alesi in 3rd position. You can see the gap between him and Hill 4th. Irvine in 5th position. Gerhard Berger is 6th. Hakkinen is still 7th. Herbert is still 8th. In 9th position, it's David Coulthard, and that's exactly where he started. So he's made no progress in the race, but already the Hungarian Grand Prix is a 2-car, 2-driver race with a big, big gap between Jacques Villeneuve in that 2nd position and Jarno, who is in 3rd position. The Williams-Renault matching the Ferrari chassis, Ferrari engine, rev for rev and wheel turn for wheel turn. The gap is staying constant.
Well, it seems quite ironical that Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve fought so fiercely for pole position, or certainly grid order, and in the end it's actually been Damon's downfall, because by being a little bit faster than Jacques Villeneuve, he's actually put himself on that dirty side of the grid. Of course, it could have all have been so very different, and he could have got ahead of Michael Schumacher and could have been where Schumacher was now, but as it happens, it's Villeneuve that's got the upper hand. Schumacher, though, has got just what he wanted. Reliability, we know, has not been good from Ferrari, but this is not a circuit that is particularly hard on cars. The engines are not on full throttle for more than about half of the circuit, compared to 3/4 of the circuit at Hockenheim. But having said that, whilst it's not hard on drivers, it is very hard, hard on cars, it is very, very hard on drivers. And this unrelenting series of corners with the bumps, if you can see the car jiggle up and down, inside it, it's like being hit with a hammer. It really is violent, and they're going to have virtually, well, 1 hour and 45 minutes of pounding around like this for the whole of the Grand Prix.
7/10 of a second then between Schumacher and Villeneuve, and you saw the gap between Villeneuve and Jarno in 3rd position. Now, we've talked a little about strategy and potential stops. We're expecting 3 of them, which is what we had for the top men last year, in which case you would expect them to be round about laps 14, 28 and 42 if you do it on a purely mathematical basis. But strategy will come into it. How the traffic on the circuit was predicted will come into it. There are so many things that can decide when cars come in to make a stop. The effect of the fuel weight, for instance, the refueling time. There are about a dozen factors which are fed into the computers to enable them to make a prediction about when to come in, but they still have to stay flexible as they come through now to complete another lap. Schumacher leading Villeneuve and stretching the gap between themselves and Alesi in 3rd position.
Well, actually, I don't think they're going to be coming that early, even if they're on 3 stops. It's a 77-lap race around here. And the first stop on a 3-stop routine, I would expect to be round about lap 18. The second one around about lap 38, with then the third one about lap 55, then running on finally to the flag. A 2-stop routine, lap 25, and lap 50 would be more like it. But what we're looking at now, looking at Schumacher, and there's an off there, and a major off one of the Jordans. It looks like Martin Brundle, and that's the end of his motor race. That's on the fast left-hander. That's a blind corner. Very, very easy to get the car unstuck, because you can't see where the exit is as you approach that corner, and he would have been going off there at about 100 and probably 120 miles an hour. The gravel trap not doing a great deal. We may see the car. No, we lost it there. That's where the car would have been. But a sad early end to a miserable weekend for Martin Brundle.
With 3 retirements already, Mika Salo and Diniz seemingly having had a coming together at the start, because Mika Salo was in 16th position on the grid. Pedro Diniz was ahead of him in 15th place. Salo was very, very unhappy with the handling of his Pirelli Yamaha all through qualifying, and the preceding sessions would have been making a blazing start, and maybe Diniz pulled across. It's all hypothesis, I don't know. All I do know is that they are out, and there is the good news that Martin Brundle is obviously all right, as his Jordan is towed in. 17 left out of the 20 who started. Another lap completed. You're looking at the leaders, and there's still very little in it. About 0.6 of a second between Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve, with Jean Alesi still in 3rd place. 7 laps completed, 70 laps to go. Now this race is going to last about an hour and 45 minutes. It's a demanding race on car and driver, particularly in the heat. The track temperature is very nearly 30 degrees here. I'm sitting in a car for that length of time in your flame-proof suit and overalls belted in tight, with the balaclava helmet, and the exertion that you have to make is going to be tremendously demanding for the drivers, who will lose a lot of weight. And there are the leaders now. Let's hope they look back, and let's see where Jean Alesi is in 3rd position, compared with the Ferrari being pressed so hard by Jacques Villeneuve. Now, Damon Hill still in the points. What he needs to do from his World Championship point of view, as we ride with Jacques Villeneuve looking ahead at the Ferrari. No, it's the Benetton, I'm sorry. We're with Hill, and that's Alesi. Now, we've joined Damon Hill in 4th position. He's challenging Jean Alesi, because Hill is looking, as I was saying, to finish ahead of Jacques Villeneuve in order to extend his World Championship gap. But he's got a long, long way to go before he can do that, and the first thing he's got to do is get past Alesi.
Well, I don't think he's going to do that. We're on lap 9 now, and the first round of refueling stops again. If there are going to be 3 stops, we'll be around about lap 18, lap 19, I would expect, keeping to a conventional division. And Hill's not going to find a way by. The Benetton, don't forget, is powered by exactly the same engine as the Williams, both with the same power output, both with very similar top speeds. So even on a circuit like Hockenheim, where overtaking is possible, certainly theoretically anyway, as we saw 2 weeks ago, Hill could not get by Berger, and so he's got absolutely no chance of getting by Alesi unless Alesi makes a mistake. Now that's what's got to happen. We saw it last year when Michael Schumacher was in 3rd place, pressurizing David Coulthard ahead of him, and he made a mistake going into Coulthard made a mistake by being pressurized by Alesi, by Schumacher, I beg your pardon, and as a result of that, Schumacher got by. Now that's what Damon Hill's got to try and do here. He's lost 9 seconds. The gap from Schumacher to Hill was 9 seconds on lap 9. It's now 10 seconds. So you can see he's losing a second a lap, and he's got to try and make that back up if he's going to have any chance of getting on top of Schumacher. Villeneuve right behind him, but we should also bear in mind again that there are another 8 laps of Hill having to follow Alesi like this, so that's probably going to be 18 seconds gap from Schumacher to Hill by the time this crucial first round of pit stops takes place.
And now Jacques Villeneuve, the fastest man on the track, 1:21.1 compared with Mansell's lap record 1:18.3. We are on lap 10. Schumacher is leading Villeneuve by the gap, but you can see they are both 10.5 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, who's got Damon Hill right behind him. Eddie Irvine is in 5th place. Gerhard Berger is in 6th position, just 1.3 seconds behind the Ferrari. 7th is Hakkinen, 8th is Herbert. 9th is David Coulthard, and in 10th place Rubens Barrichello, who whose teammate Martin Brundle has left the Hungarian Grand Prix very literally, going off the course at tremendous speed, but he's obviously quite all right. And the other retirements that we have on lap 10 as you watch the battle for the lead between Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve. Schumacher from Germany, Villeneuve from Canada. The other retirements are Pedro Diniz and Mika Salo. Through to complete the lap. Now, this is into lap 11. Now, let's look back, hopefully. Yes, and it's going to be a 10-second gap. There it is. A 10-second gap to the blue and white Benetton of Jean Alesi, which has got looming large in its mirrors the Williams of Hill. There is Eddie Irvine in 5th position. 6th is Berger. Coming towards us in 7th place, Mika Hakkinen, being harried by Johnny Herbert, reveling in the enhanced performance of the Sauber Ford. And behind them, a long way behind them, 5 seconds behind them, is Coulthard, and 10th is Barrichello. And Schumacher is praying for reliability. If he's got it, he's going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix, provided his pit stops go well.
So with 10 laps completed now, let's just reflect on what could be going on in terms of this all-important pit stop strategy. Well, we knew that the fastest way to complete this race distance was to do 3 stops, because the tyres do degrade, they physically wear out pretty quickly. But the danger with doing 3 stops is that you're going to get held up behind someone else who's doing 2 ahead of you, and therefore compromise and squander indeed your light car. So let's think who could be changing that. Well, looking at the pace that we're seeing, Michael Schumacher, I think, could be on for 2 stops. Now, that's something which he may have contemplated. He knew he was in a good position on the grid. Therefore, he knew he was had a pretty good chance of getting away first, despite a heavier car, and then holding up those behind, in this case, Jacques Villeneuve. Now, we're going to know the answer by about lap 20. Now on their 12th lap, if Schumacher comes in before lap 20, then that confirms, as far as I'm concerned, that he's on a 3-stop routine. If he comes in more like lap 25, then he's going to be on a 2-stopper. Looking further back, Jean Alesi could well be on a 2-stop routine too. We tended to see Benetton make fewer stops than Williams in the past, and if that's the case, that's also going to be an added handicap for Hill, and I'm sure that we're going to see Damon Hill come into the pits, and that's one of the Jordans where we've seen Verstappen go off, sorry, one of the Arrows cars, I beg your pardon. We've seen Verstappen go off so many times this year that we can't see quite which car that is, but maybe that's him.
I'm not going to guess at that one. We'll just have to wait and see, and as we rejoin Damon Hill. Now you can see what we were talking about when we said that passing is difficult. It is Jos Verstappen, and sadly he's not doing his reputation. I hope it was a car problem rather than his, because he has not done his reputation much good in the last few races by his ability to fly off the circuit.
Well, I hope for his point of view it is, but not for the team's, and I would have thought, looking at the number of mistakes that Verstappen has made, that probably is a driver error. He looked so very, very good at the start of this season. He was tipped to be joining maybe Benetton again and all sorts of things, but I'm afraid any chances of doing that have long since receded. Verstappen, I think, is even being reconsidered for his future at Arrows team. Quick he is, but too mistake-prone he also is.
Well, now we've got 2 races in Hungary on lap 13 out of 77. You're looking at the race for the lead. No, you're not. You're looking for the race for 3rd position, as I say that. And there is the Ferrari of Schumacher, pursued by Villeneuve. That is race 1. And now 13 seconds, nearly 14 seconds down the track. Alesi and Hill are fighting each other for that 3rd position. And I was saying when we were on that on-board camera of Villeneuve's car, you can see what we were talking about when we were saying how difficult it is to pass here, because the track twists and turns. Martin Brundle, there is the confirmation that he is perfectly okay. Helmet still on, very sadly looking at the race, because the move that he made to Jordan has not turned out to be a good one. He has had a very, very poor season. He's failed to finish 6 times. He's only been in the points in 6th position 3 times, and that was not at all what he was looking for after he moved from his previous team in 1995. Out goes the board, place 1, 7/10 of a second behind you, Michael, says the board, is Jacques Villeneuve, as if Michael couldn't see him in his mirrors. and they come down out of turn 2, turn right-handed into turn 3 now, build up the speed to 165 miles an hour as they climb up to the left-handed turn 4, back through the gears to turn 5. This is the highest point of the circuit. This is where they get into the twisty section, and they're doing about 145 miles an hour out of here. We're on lap 14. You're looking at the battle for the lead. Alesi and Hill are still behind them in 3rd and 4th positions, followed by Irvine and Berger.
And just look how hard Schumacher is throwing that Ferrari through the chicane. Now, I think we may be about to be seeing a pit stop, certainly in the next 3 or 4 laps. That's the way it looks from the signals. And Alesi's lap time, Schumacher's lap times are probably consistent with this being a 3-stop routine for him. Now, currently, Schumacher is 15.5 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi in 3rd spot. He's going to lose about 21 seconds by my estimation when he comes in for a stop. If it's a short stop, if it's the first of 3, he'll be stationary for probably 6 to 7 seconds, but he'll lose a total of 21 seconds, and that could mean that if he can pull out a few more seconds in the course of the next 3 laps, he might even get out ahead of Jean Alesi. If he doesn't do that, he may find himself being held up by Alesi because he won't be too far behind.
Well, at the present moment, Jacques Villeneuve is closing the gap in the World Championship to Damon Hill by 3 points, because he is on 6 points for 2nd position. Damon Hill is on 3 points for 4th place. But lap 13, there's 64 laps still to go, 3 pit stops still to go, we expect. But the Ferrari is proving to be reliable. We know from team manager Jean Todt that the team has had so many problems in developing this car. One of them, as into the pits comes Heinz-Harald Frentzen from 11th position. That's the first pit stop in the Sauber Ford, and out he goes, 6.5 seconds stationary, and you've got to add on to that, of course, the time getting into the pit lane, getting out of the pit lane, slowing up, and then getting back to race speed again, and that will obviously make quite a difference. It's going to be something of the order of 30 seconds altogether. Another lap completed now. You can see that as Villeneuve gets closer to Schumacher, Schumacher is coming up to Giovanni Lavaggi, who is 16th, and the first man who is going to be lapped, and this is on lap 15 out of 77, so it gives you an indication of the relative speeds. Schumacher lapping in 1 minute 21.6, Lavaggi lapping 5 seconds slower. And now the next thing that will happen is that Alesi and Hill will come upon Lavaggi, with both Schumacher and Villeneuve passed on lap 15.
Lavaggi there doing just the right thing. He may be slow, but he does seem to have a degree of discipline about him. And even being 5 seconds a lap slower, if he tried to make life difficult, or if he just indeed stayed on the racing line, it could have been pretty difficult for Schumacher and Villeneuve to find a way by, even during this lap.
Yes, Giovanni Lavaggi is getting on a bit in racing driver terms, but he is a true gentleman out of the cockpit and in it. He's there by virtue of the size of his wallet rather than his ability, because the Minardi team desperately need funds and have reluctantly had to drop Giancarlo Fisichella, the young and very promising Italian charger, in order to make way for Lavaggi's funds. It's regrettable, but that's the way it is. And here's the way it is, as completing the lap with Jacques Villeneuve, we go into lap 16 with the Williams-Renault. Looking at the Ferrari, which is about 0.4 of a second ahead. Round turn 1, downhill a bit, left into turn 2. It's very tricky there. A lot of people were losing it at this point in the qualifying as Alesi and Hill cross the line, and that's a 17-second gap between Schumacher, who leads, and Alesi, who is in 3rd position, being pushed very hard indeed by Damon Hill. And meantime, of course, the leaders are getting further and further away. The best at the moment that Damon can hope for is 3rd position, if he can get past Alesi, who is ahead of us now. We're riding with Hill. Just a flick of the steering there as he corrects the car. Round the right-hander, this is turn 5. Now they're coming up to the chicane, right and left, down to 60 miles an hour. Right, now left, to a left-hander is the next one. And then the right-hander at turn 9, which is about 80 miles an hour. This is it. They're left again here at this point. And after turn 11, this is the right-hander here. And I can tell you now that Gerhard Berger has got past Eddie Irvine. So the Benettons are in 3rd and 5th positions. Top 6, Schumacher, Villeneuve, Alesi, Hill, Berger now 5th, Irvine down to 6th.
So get poised for some pit stops. They're on lap 17. They're about to start lap 18. Now, if they were going to go for the straightforward 3-stop routine, I would have expected those pit stops are either by about now or in the next 2 laps. But what I also expect is that, well, in fact, I'm quite sure we're going to see, is Damon Hill coming into the pit. The Williams team really need to bring Hill in before Alesi. They need to make that pit stop for Hill shorter than Alesi, because they have got to make sure that Hill can get some clear track. In comes Johnny Herbert to the pits for the first of 3, surely for his. They've got to get Hill out ahead of Alesi so that Hill can get on and use the performance of himself and that Williams car to get onto the chase with Schumacher and Villeneuve.
Johnny Herbert in from 8th position, and I think Eddie Irvine is in trouble. He was so much back down the track behind Gerhard Berger, who had just passed him, but it looks to me as though Ferrari's 8th retirement from 10 starts may be imminent. I'm guessing, I don't know anything, it just looked from me the way he was on the track. Eddie had got so much out of the car during the free periods of practice and qualifying that I would have expected him to stay ahead of Gerhard Berger, but he didn't. On the other hand, Berger's teammate Jean Alesi is resisting every effort of Damon Hill to pressure him off the track.
Ferrari mechanics are making a run out of the garage. They're springing a surprise. They're getting ready for a pit stop. Now, it may be Irvine with his problems, but the way they seem to have come out so quickly, it leads me to think that it's for Schumacher, because strategy and tactics are so important. Ferrari wouldn't have wanted Williams to know that they were going to stop Schumacher until the last possible moment.
Well, let's wait and see. Meantime, Benetton versus Williams as we look down the pit lane to see whether the Ferrari is coming in. And I'm watching Schumacher still. Schumacher still out there in the lead on lap 19. Villeneuve still right up behind him. You're looking at the battle for 3rd and 4th. Berger now 3 seconds behind this lot, and behind Berger, Eddie Irvine dropping back. Is Irvine coming in? There's no sign at the present moment. Rosset has just gone past in 13th position.
Now, Schumacher is 19.7 seconds ahead of Alesi. He needs just 21 seconds as a lead, I believe, to get out ahead of Alesi, so he's going to be very close indeed.
Yeah, and you just saw the flash. This is Michael Schumacher, race leader, coming in for his first pit stop now. He's got that substantial lead of 19.8 seconds over Jean Alesi in 3rd position. Of course, Villeneuve has gone through in the lead. I'm looking for Jean Alesi, who goes through, and so does Damon Hill. I don't think Schumacher's going to get out in front of them. He is not. There is Hill. There is Berger. So Berger gets out, and Michael Schumacher joins the track in front of Eddie Irvine in 6th position. So Michael Schumacher is down to 6th position on to 5th position with his teammate Eddie Irvine in 6th place. Now that of course helps Jacques Villeneuve, because now he has got a clear track. And what the Canadian has got to do is really get the hammer down. He's already fastest. His 4th lap here, 1 minute 21.08. Now he's got to look to try to build up a second or so. It would be enough, provided his pit stop is of the same length as that of Michael Schumacher, who took about 27 seconds in all from entering to leaving. Then Villeneuve could get out of the pit lane still in the lead. But we've just got to wait and see. Meantime, lap 20, Villeneuve leads. And yes, Villeneuve is fastest. He's increased his speed, 1 minute 21.07. Not very much quicker, but it's an indication of the fact that he realizes exactly what the situation is. As towards us come Jean Alesi. Behind Jean Alesi is Damon Hill. Behind Damon Hill is the Minardi.
And the Williams crew are getting ready for a pit stop for them. I believe this one will be for Damon Hill. He's the one they need to get in earlier. He's the one they need to get out ahead of Jean Alesi. Meanwhile, Villeneuve, I believe it makes more sense for him to have the daylight in front of him on the track, to pull out a margin in order that he can be ahead when Villeneuve comes out after his stop.
And look at Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher battling for 4th position. Remember, Schumacher came out in 5th position. Berger got ahead as he got past the pit lane exit. And Michael Schumacher knows he can go faster than Gerhard Berger. He's already proved that. But he can't go faster than Berger if Berger doesn't let him pass. And you know how difficult it is to do that in Hungary. So we're looking for Jacques Villeneuve to come in. We think it is him rather than Damon Hill at the moment. And Villeneuve has got a 20.7 second lead over Jean Alesi, and Villeneuve is in. Never mind this, Mr. Producer. Let us have it. Here he is, Jacques Villeneuve, race leader. Now, I'm looking for Alesi. I'm looking for Hill. They're together. And I do believe that Villeneuve is going to get out onto the track again as down it comes. There's Alesi. There is Damon Hill. Alesi leads. Hill is second. Villeneuve is third. Berger is fourth. Schumacher is in 5th place. It has all come alive in Hungary. There is the proof. Williams, Benetton, Ferrari. The Benetton is Berger and the Ferrari is Damon Hill, and the first round of pit stops have been concluded. 2 to come, we think.
Well, that was absolutely perfect for Jacques Villeneuve. Schumacher came out and was held up by Berger, so that held up Schumacher, and that makes a change, whereas Villeneuve benefited from just a couple of laps being out in front, and that enabled him to get that all-important 4 seconds to get ahead. Meanwhile, it also looks as if we've got different strategies from Williams for Hill and for Villeneuve. Villeneuve surely is on a 3-stop routine, with probably a 2-stop routine now for Damon Hill, which is good news for Hill, because it means that he won't have been as handicapped by having to follow Alesi. It looks as if Hill keeps going for another 4 laps before coming in, he's only going to be making 2 stops, so only 1 more to go after that.
So this is another case of a Grand Prix developing as the race itself develops. Really, really exciting at this point, with Michael Schumacher, the finest driver in the world, most people think, unable to do anything about the veteran Gerhard Berger in his 192nd Grand Prix. And Jean Alesi is now in the pits. There is the Frenchman. He was in 3rd position when he came in. Gerhard Berger, of course, moves up into 3rd position now as you look at the McLaren going past Giovanni Lavaggi. And you look now at Alesi exiting the pit lane. And now, of course, Damon Hill is leading the Hungarian Grand Prix with his teammate Jacques Villeneuve in 2nd position. But, of course, remember, Villeneuve has stopped and Damon Hill has not. Damon Hill on his 23rd lap, and you look now at Berger and Schumacher, 4th and 5th. Race order, lap 23. Damon Hill leads, Villeneuve 2nd, Alesi 3rd. Berger is in... Alesi has now, as a result of his pit stop, I apologise, dropped down to 9th position. So Gerhard Berger has moved up into 3rd position. Schumacher has moved up into 4th place. And Katayama, with his teammate Mika Salo out of the race, makes his pit stop on lap 22. And this is tremendously interesting. Just remember, cast your mind back 2 weeks to the German Grand Prix, and remember how Gerhard Berger, that you're looking at now, resisted the pressure of Damon Hill for 8 laps. At the conclusion of the race, whatever Damon did, whichever way he jigged, to the left or to the right, with equal engines and equal cars, Damon could do nothing about Gerhard Berger. But now Berger is resisting Schumacher. Hand off goes David Coulthard, right in front of me. David Coulthard is out of the race, right in front of me. I saw him slide off the track. He was in 7th position. Here's a replay.
And the engine blows. Surely something happens to the back end of the car. He loses rear end grip. Looks like maybe a suspension problem at the back end of the car, although there's fluid coming out of the back of it. Mechanical problem, Coulthard out.
to make the 5th retirement. Mika out, Diniz out, Brundle out, Jos Verstappen out, and now David Coulthard out. It's perfectly okay, thank heavens. One always worries.
Yes, I think probably what happened there is that something happened. There was oil on the rear tyres. He was slowing up.
And news from Tony Jardine, he saw that happen.
In the pits at Benetton at the moment, Murray, the critical thing is the tyre wear. Right in front of me is the set that came off a Lazy's Benetton, and I have to say they look pretty gnarled and pretty second-hand. There are lots of holes in them. They are rolling around at the edges and graining very, very badly, and the mechanics have just gone out, and Berger's coming in for his pit stop right in front of me now.
I see him, Tony. There he is. Gerhard Berger in from 5th position, and it looks like a routine stop. They scramble away from the front of the car. You don't want to be standing around there.
You can see the Williams crew ready just in front of Berger's crew. That means Hill's going to be coming in. Now, Hill is currently just 1 second ahead of Villeneuve. Of course, he's going to lose some 22, 23 seconds. Hill now surely will be on a 2-stop routine like Gerhard Berger. That was a longer stop for Berger. Rubens Barrichello comes into the pits. David Coulthard walks back constantly after problems there with his McLaren. As I said, I think he had an engine problem or a gearbox problem, oil on the rear tyres, and as he was braking to slow up, to pull off, then the car spun around in a relatively modest mile spin, it has to be said. 8.3 seconds, that's consistent with 50 kilos of fuel, that's 70 litres, the first again for just 2 stops for Barrichello. So get ready for Hill coming in. The first of his is going to be round about 8 or 9 seconds.
And it's this lap. There is Damon Hill. He's coming in. Now he's in the lead. And past goes Villeneuve. Villeneuve has now taken the lead. And behind is Eddie Irvine, who is coming in from 4th position. Now, it needs just a cool, deliberate stop. And out shoots Damon Hill. Now, where is he in relation to the opposition? Let's see who that is coming down towards us. It is a Benetton. And it is Jean Lacey in 6th position. Was in 6th position. He moved up to 5th when Damon Hill came in. So Damon Hill, having left the track in the lead, is now down to 6th position. And he's got exactly the same problem that he had earlier in the race, because the man in front of him is Jean Lacey. And out of the race goes Pedro Lamy. So that's yet another retirement. That is the 6th retirement in Hungary. Salo Diniz, Brundle, Jos Verstappen, David Coulthard, Pedro Lamy. What the problem is, I do not know. Now, this is a replay of Ricardo Rosset being followed by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Rosset 12th and Frentzen in 10th position. So there's nearly a lap between them. And once again, Rosset is demonstrating that the gravel traps, which are supposed to stop the cars, fail to do so. He keeps driving straight through it, and he's going to retire, I should think. Look at his left front wheel tipped right over.
Yes, Rosset there simply braked too late. The left front wheel locked up and ran him straight on there. So looking at these pit stops, now I think I was wrong about Damon Hill, because we saw him stationary only for 6.8 seconds as Mika Häkkinen comes in for his first stop. Now let's see how long this one's going to take. So that was 6.8 for Hill, and Häkkinen's car is continuing to be refueled at 8 seconds. Now that's the length I would have expected for Hill. Now that leads me to think that Hill is actually going to do 2 further stops, and that will mean that his car's running relatively light at this stage, so he really should be putting in a sprint stage here. We saw this at Hockenheim, his first stop. He was being held up behind the Benettons until his first stop. Then he put in that sprint routine that got him out ahead of Lacey and just behind Berger. So let's watch Hill carefully.
Well, there is Jacques Villeneuve leading the race. Damon Hill has had the fastest stop so far, 6.8 seconds, compared with that of Jean Lacey of 7.1 seconds. Actually, the slowest one that we've had of the leaders is Gerhard Berger, 9.2 seconds. So you see, you can very easily lose 2.5 seconds in the pits, if not more. And you've seen during this race how very difficult it is to gain 2.5 seconds on the track. But on lap 28 out of 77, Jacques Villeneuve, who won the European Grand Prix at the new Nürburgring, And the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, of course, leads in Hungary. Looking good for his third Grand Prix win. And there's a very interesting fact behind all this. Jacques Villeneuve, who is used to setting up a car for Indy racing, which is both ovals and road circuits somewhat like this one, has got a very distinctive way of doing things. And he has had discussions with the Williams team about whether he should do it his way or their way. There's been an accommodation, and as far as I know, this is the first race where Villeneuve has actually set up the car exactly the way he wants it to be. And you can see the results. He very nearly got pole position, started from third on the grid, well, about 3/10 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher, who took pole position, followed by Damon Hill, second on the grid. And Villeneuve, who's racing here for the first time, says he finds this Hungaroring much easier to learn than he thought it was going to be. And you can see the result right now. He is leading Schumacher by getting on for 8 seconds.
Well, sadly for Damon Hill, it seems that Williams' tactics have not worked out by doing that short stop. They obviously hope to get Hill out ahead of Jean Alesi. Now, that hasn't happened. Alesi remaining in third place, 17 seconds behind Schumacher. So once again, it looks like Damon is relegated to following Alesi for another, well, certainly 15, 20 laps.
So, lap 29, getting on towards half distance, as you look at Jean Alesi being pursued by Damon Hill. And the order is Jacques Villeneuve leading Michael Schumacher by nearly 9 seconds now. He's pulling away from the Ferrari. They've both had their pit stops, of course. Alesi and Hill battling now for third position, as they did earlier in the race before the pit stops. And they are some 27 seconds behind Jacques Villeneuve. A massive lead for the young Canadian. Fifth is Gerhard Berger, who is 9.5 seconds behind Damon Hill. As you look at Lavaji making his pit stop. Sixth is Eddie Irvine. Seventh is Johnny Herbert in the Sauber Ford, well ahead of his teammate, the much fancied Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Johnny Herbert is at last getting the chance in the Sauber with a really drivable engine to demonstrate how good he is. Remember, he won in Britain last year, he won in Italy last year for Benetton, and now he is doing well in the Sauber. Damon Hill pushing, lap 30. Alesi ahead of him. Is Alesi going to move in 1997? That's one of the big questions going around the Hungaroring. And they're coming up behind Ricardo Rosset, who has already been lapped once. If the Brazilian doesn't see them coming towards him in his mirrors and move over, this could be Damon Hill's chance.
Yes, and a slim chance it is too. I think it's going to be a very frustrated, somewhat despondent Damon Hill, I think, in that Williams. He's lapping about 1.5 seconds a lap slower than he possibly could if he had a clear track in front of him. But Alesi's doing just what he should. He's keeping to the racing line. It looks like Alesi, I think, is on a 3-stop routine, so his second stop will be lap 38. They're on their lap 30 now. So at best, it looks like Damon has got another 8 laps of following Alesi along, and this really hasn't worked out the way that Williams had wanted. But there is a bit of a hope for Damon, and he'll be looking at that Arrows ahead. He'll be looking at Rosset, just thinking this could be a chance. He'll be poised. He needs to get right up behind Alesi to make sure that if there is a little chink of opportunity, he's there to seize upon it.
And remember how Damon Hill passed David Coulthard in Portugal in similar circumstances. And David Coulthard, incidentally, is with Tony Jardi. Let's hear from them.
David, that all looked a bit hairy there going along the straight. What happened?
I think it must have been the gearbox that seized. I didn't see any smoke from the engine, so I can only presume it was the gearbox.
Did you feel something going on the back wheels when it slipped away from you?
Well, coming out of the last corner, I felt the car winding up, really tightening. So I radioed to say I think I've got a problem, but I'd passed the pit lane entry already. And then obviously when I accelerated, it just seized. So that's racing. It's disappointing though, because I was one-stop strategy, and with that strategy what Mika was doing too, I was only 7 seconds behind, so it meant that after the pit stops I was in really good shape.
And
I must interrupt you, Tony,
David,
because Damon Hill has got past Jean Alesi. I hope we see a replay of that so that you can have a look at it again. Damon Hill saw his opportunity as we thought. Here it is coming up. Now watch.
So this is into turn one. Alesi runs a bit wide, actually, and Hill comes up the inside. That was nothing to do specifically with the lapping of the Arrows. Alesi looks to close the door, realises it's too late, and through goes Damon. Well, that was a mistake, really, from Jean Alesi, although he may have been trying to brake particularly late to get around the Arrows, but he looked to be fairly well ahead of it. Either way, Hill is now free of the traffic of Alesi. He's currently, well, Alesi is 22.1 seconds behind Schumacher, so that's the gap we need to monitor now. And here's the view from Hill's point of view. Look, Alesi goes wide. Look at the line. He locks the wheel. The right front wheel locks, sends him wide. Wonderful open door for Damon Hill. All of his Christmases come at once. He really must have been totally surprised and delighted that he was presented with that opportunity.
So Williams are first and third now, sandwiching Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Villeneuve leading Schumacher on lap 32 out of 77 by 9.7 seconds, with Damon Hill now 32 seconds behind his teammate. Can he close the gap? Well, he may be able to, but I can't see him closing it enough to be able to challenge Schumacher, never mind Jean Alesi. The gap between Hill and Schumacher is 22 seconds, and that is a heck of a gap. We're on lap 32, Villeneuve, Schumacher, Hill. Alesi goes down into fourth position. Berger is still fifth. Irvine in the second Ferrari. And out goes Irvine as I say it. Eddie Irvine now. I said before this race began that Ferrari had 7 failures to finish from the last 8 starts, so they have now had 8 failures to finish. And Eddie Irvine, notwithstanding his constant bullishness about Ferrari, must be getting a bit depressed. Driving for Ferrari and getting the money is one thing, but you want above all to finish races. And yet again, Eddie Irvine fails to do so. It's the 8th time this year he's done it. Well, Irvine is out. Is Michael Schumacher going to finish the race? He has failed to do so several times this year, starting in Canada, then in France, and he's now very much under stress. And Damon Hill is going faster. He's just put in the fastest lap. Lavachi gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. There is a 75-mile-an-hour limit in the pit lane, and quite clearly his electronic engine limiter did not work, or he forgot to switch it on when he came in. It's not going to make an awful lot of difference to the race, to be honest, because he's already been lapped twice and he's 14th out of the 20 who started. But I was saying that Damon Hill has just made the fastest lap of the race, having got past Jean Alesi. He is not giving up, he's going for it. And Damon Hill's lap of 1 minute 20.7 compares with Mansell's fastest lap ever of Hungary with a 3.5 litre engine, let us remember, 1:18.3. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the pits. He is in 8th position on a lap 34. The order is Villeneuve leading Schumacher by 9.3 seconds, leading Hill by 30 seconds, leading Alesi 4th by 36 seconds, and Schumacher goes round, or tries to go round the outside of the Sauber as Frentzen gives way to his German colleague, and in walks Eddie Irvine with the usual posse of interviewers asking him what happened, why did it go wrong, and Michael Schumacher slicing his way through the field now. He's just past the Minardi, and here's a replay of Frentzen exiting the pit lane as Michael Schumacher, having braked from about 170 miles an hour, runs round the outside of the Sauber. Perhaps Frentzen debated with himself about whether he would hold the racing line, but he saw it was the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, knew that it was the gentlemanly thing to do to move over, and now Schumacher is catching Olivier Panis, who is in 10th position in the Ligier, has already been lapped. And think Schumacher's got a struggle on his hands now. He is dropping back all the time in comparison with Jacques Villeneuve, who is lapping steadily in the front. He's on his 35th lap now. He's constantly increasing the gap between himself and the man you're looking at, Michael Schumacher. It's up to nearly 11.5 seconds as I talk to you. But the important thing is that Damon Hill is still continuing to gain. I can tell you that. Damon Hill is reeling Schumacher in, not quickly, but he's putting him in nevertheless. And we've still got over half this race to go. Damon is looking not so much for victory. Of course he wants to win, but he's looking to reduce the points difference at the end of this race between himself and Villeneuve to the maximum, unless of course he can get past the Canadian. So, past Panis goes Michael Schumacher, and Damon Hill is lapping consistently. There you are, 1 minute 20.581. That is the fastest lap of the race. And you're riding with Hill now. Let's listen to the Renault engine. Oh, we can't hear it now. That's Michael Schumacher. I was saying earlier on what a lot of problems Ferrari have had. Not many people give them credit for the fact that they've moved from a V12 engine, which is very smooth and revvy, to a V10, which creates all sorts of vibration problems which are entirely new to Ferrari. Renault, of course, who pioneered the V10 engine, have been dealing with those problems for a long, long time, since 1989, in fact, so they know all about them. It's new territory for Ferrari, and it's not just a case of stressing the engine, it's a case of stressing all sorts of components and breaking things because of vibration that hadn't broken before. So it's all new to Ferrari, their first year. It's all new to Michael Schumacher, who said he expected unreliability problems with the Maranello team this year. Well, if he expected them, he has certainly had them. And we're on lap 36, as again you see that Damon has got the benefit of having a clear track, and he's going faster and faster all the time. Now, it's only 1/10 of a second at a time, but every little helps, and the point is that he's keeping the pressure up. He's not giving in, and now the gap between himself and Schumacher is down to 16 seconds.
Yes, Hill has been progressively closing that gap. Of course, what we don't quite know is the level of fuel load between the two cars, but I suspect it's fairly similar. It looks like Schumacher is going to be on a 3-stop routine, although his first stop was a little long. It's not impossible that could have been the first of 2, but I do think it's unlikely. I think we probably got Villeneuve on the first of 3, and that first stop of Hill's was short as well, so it looks like I still think he's got to do 2 more stops yet. But for Gerhard Berger, he's certainly just got 1 more stop to go, as has Mika Häkkinen in 7th place. Now, if they're going to be on 3 stops, the second stop I'd expect to happen within the next 3 laps. So again, get ready, get poised for another round of pit stops. And it has to be said that Villeneuve has got enough margin at 28.5 seconds over Hill that he's going to be able to come into the pits, fill up and get out again and keep ahead of Damon Hill, and that's going to be absolutely critical.
Well, you're not seeing much of Villeneuve, and here is the reason. You are seeing a great drive by a great driver. Damon Hill is going faster and faster, lap by lap. He's just gone round in 1 minute 20.2, the fastest lap of the race. And in terms of kilometres, that's about 178 k's average around this circuit, 2.5 miles long. And that is a heck of an achievement. And all the time he is eating into Schumacher's lead. It is now down to under 15 seconds. So, over the line goes the Williams, and it is the Williams of Jacques Villeneuve. Now into his 38th lap, with seemingly the race in his pocket because he's lapping much quicker than Schumacher, but Hill is now lapping quicker than Villeneuve, so he's not only catching Schumacher in 2nd place, he's catching Villeneuve in the lead. We've still got those pit stops. Anything can happen in Hungary. Alesi is still 3rd out of the running. He is 6.5 seconds ahead of his teammate Gerhard Berger. Mika Häkkinen is in the points in 6th position, albeit 61 seconds behind Jacques Villeneuve. And everybody up to 6th has been lapped, and out of the race goes Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber. But Johnny Herbert is still running. I apologise, Johnny Herbert is not still running. Johnny Herbert was the man on the end of the tow rope. I apologise, I fear that the tow rope was fouling his helmet, but whatever, Herbert is out. Frentzen is therefore in, and that reduces the field yet more. 8 out altogether. Salo out, Deniz out, Brundle went off and out of the race. Jos Verstappen is out, David Coulthard is out with that gearbox problem. Pedro Lamy retired, then Eddie Irvine went out with a problem that we don't know. And Johnny Herbert retires on lap 39 out of 77 with Jacques Villeneuve leading on lap 39.
And Villeneuve looking very much in control here. He's gradually eking out the gap over Michael Schumacher. It's going up by about a second a lap. Schumacher clearly finding the Ferrari still not quite a match for the Williams of Villeneuve. Villeneuve has been on such good form this weekend. To come here on his first visit and to be challenging for the pole has impressed so many people. It's a circuit I think that suits him quite well. It's a circuit that's bumpy and he's used to throwing the car around, pitching it over the curves, and therefore I think he finds the bumps less unsettling than perhaps Damon Hill does. Now, the good thing for Villeneuve is that his biggest challenge is obviously going to come from Schumacher, reliability permitting, and it looks to me as if both these two are on the same refueling strategy, the refueling routines. They both made their first stops, Schumacher on lap 19 and Villeneuve on lap 21, fairly close to each other, fairly consistent in terms of length of stop. But it's now they're on their 39th lap. Had they were going to make the first, or we were going to be the second of 3, I would have thought it would come in the next couple of laps. And so far, no sign of activity in the pit lane. Yes, there is, I beg your pardon. We have Ferrari ready to go. So, Schumacher surely going to be coming in for his second stop, and there he is.
Yes, Michael Schumacher in, and this will certainly let Damon Hill through into second place. He was only 12 seconds behind the Ferrari on the previous lap. Keep an eye on Schumacher. I'll keep an eye on the track and tell you when Damon Hill goes through as you watch Schumacher in. There is Hill. Hill is up into second place, and Schumacher, who was being caught at the rate of 1.5 seconds of a lap, accelerates out. Now, Alesi has not gone through, so Schumacher should rejoin the track in third position. Yes, he does, and in the background, you see Jean Alesi coming round the last right-hander into the start and finish straight. Still fourth, Berger still fifth, Häkkinen still sixth, and Rubens Barrichello, who is seventh, has been lapped.
Williams are ready too, mechanics there, tyres ready. Now, this could be either for Villeneuve or for Hill. We think both have got 2 more stops to go, because of course Hill did do that whilst it was a late first stop. It was a very short first stop, and it's Villeneuve. Villeneuve's coming in. Now, he's got nothing to worry about. He's well ahead of Michael Schumacher. In fact, he was about 16 seconds behind, so it needn't be a stop that is honed right down to the last 10th of a second. It's important not to make any mistakes, and it's probably going to be round about 7 seconds.
Damon Hill in second position now, of course, and so watch Jacques Villeneuve. His lead over Damon Hill was some 28 seconds, so there should be absolutely no problem about the Canadian exiting the pit lane and rejoining the track in the lead ahead of Damon Hill. Well, there he goes. Barrichello goes through, and Damon Hill has just gone past my commentary box, so there's about 5 seconds in it between Villeneuve in the lead and Hill in second position. But Villeneuve has stopped twice, Hill has stopped once. There is Schumacher in third position, and he is some 20 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. Williams-Renault leads. Williams-Renault second, Ferrari third, Benetton-Renault's fourth and fifth, so Renault engines are 4 of the top 5 places, an excellent performance. Hakkinen in 7th place, his teammate David Coulthard is out of the race. Barrichello is 7th, his teammate Martin Brundle is out of the race.
Williams ready once again, this time obviously for Hill.
Yes, and we'll wait and see what the gap is. But now with Villeneuve just, we think, with 1 stop from the time that he took at his second stop still to be made, and a very cool and calm young driver. I say young, he's 25 years old, that's pretty young to me, and this is his 12th Grand Prix, and coming through to complete the lap now, over the line, and Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill in. Now, he was 24 seconds behind Villeneuve, and he was 12 and a half seconds ahead of Schumacher. So this is going to be a much closer run thing in terms of retaining his place. Schumacher has gone past and back into second position. Damon Hill therefore down to third, or is it down to fourth? Because there's the Benetton, and it's Jarno. Now this time, Hill, who spent much of the beginning of the race behind Jarno, came in and made his pit stop, rejoined just behind Lacey, and had it all to do again. Has done it, because he has come into the pits for the second time, taken on new tyres, wheels and more fuel, and rejoined the track ahead of Jarno. And he should pull away as Rubens Barrichello, yes, who is seventh, is about to be lapped by race leader Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams-Renault, who, as you can see, is some 15 and a half seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. This is lap 42. It's a 77-lap race, and it's looking very good indeed for Williams and for Renault. And even if Schumacher only finishes in third position or second position, it will be a real encouragement for Ferrari. But they really haven't got an awful lot to be proud about after Germany, after the preceding races. And look at the way Michael Schumacher cants his head over. That's to clear the airbox and let the maximum amount of air through to the V10 engine behind him. So there goes the German. The car is running reliably, which is more than you can say about that of his teammate Eddie Irvine. And there are now 12 competitors left on lap 43 out of the 20 that started, the most recent retirement being that of Johnny Herbert. Lavaggi, who is in 12th position in the Minardi, has been lapped twice. Rosset, who is 11th, Katayama, who is 10th, Panis, who is in Frentzen, who is 9th, and Panis, who is 8th, and Barrichello have been lapped once. I understand that Tony Jardine has got the answer to Eddie Irvine's problem. Tony.
Yeah, we had a quick word with him. Naturally enough, Eddie was very disgruntled, very unhappy, making his way back up to the pits after his walk-in. It was gearbox failure yet again, and I stress it wasn't the new gearbox that he tested last week at Monza. It was the older one, but gearbox failure again for Ferrari.
Well, Tony says yet again, so perhaps a bit of explanation. Ferrari intended to start the season with a trick gearbox of titanium and Kevlar, a unique construction. It had a great deal of problems in retaining oil and retaining the parts inside it, and they've moved back to the original gearbox and then to a revised version of the new one, but it's clearly still the Achilles heel. Coming towards us is Jarno. He's in 4th place, and again we've got the two Benettons almost on the track with each other, because Gerhard Berger, you'll just see him come round. No, you won't. You almost saw him come round the corner in 5th place.
And just going back a few laps, that pit stop from the Williams team for a Hill looked particularly fast. It was that 6.7 second stop which got Hill out, crucially, ahead of Jarno. Now that's particularly good because Alesi now has done 2 pit stops to Alesi's 1. And I really would have thought Alesi will be the next person to pit. I don't think he can get away with just one more stop. It may be that I'm wrong, but currently he certainly seems to be showing signs of staying right out there. Now, I do believe that we've got just one more stop for Häkkinen and Berger. Meanwhile, Villeneuve looks very comfortable indeed, but Damon Hill is actually closing up on Michael Schumacher. He's taking about a second a lap of Schumacher, and both have completed the same number of stops. Both, I think, have got one more stop to go, like Jacques Villeneuve. So I think Damon Hill's got a very real chance, if not of winning this race, but even that is quite possible. He's only 24, 25 seconds behind Villeneuve now. There are still some 33 laps to go. So if Hill really puts the pedal down, if he really finds the kind of pace, digs deep as he's done so many times before, Damon Hill could still yet challenge Jacques Villeneuve. We have seen that he's been setting fastest laps. He still holds the fastest lap of the race here at 1 minute 20.2. Villeneuve is currently lapping in 1:21.0, so there is potential there for Hill to win this race yet.
And before Damon came in for his last pit stop, he was catching Michael Schumacher at the rate of 1.5 seconds a lap. He's doing exactly the same thing again now, and really eating into the Ferrari's lead. And Schumacher must have some sort of a problem when you remember how quickly he went in qualifying to go faster than everything, including the two Williams-Renaults of Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill. And yet in the race, he is lapping that much slower. He is now 16.5 seconds behind Villeneuve and about 9.5 seconds in front of Damon Hill.
Well, yes, Murray, that's exactly what we thought at the German Grand Prix when Schumacher was right up with Williams and Benetton in qualifying, and yet was about a second a lap off the pace in the race, and despite being on the same strategy. So it seems, as Olivier Panis comes in for his second stop, I beg your pardon, it seems that Schumacher can actually qualify better than he can race. Now, there are two reasons for that. One, the most likely may be that Ferrari put in particularly powerful qualifying engines that don't have the reliability to enable them to be used in the race, and so they put in a less powerful engine for the race, whereas Williams with the Renault engine, a much more proven engine, run pretty much the same horsepower for qualifying all the race. And the other thing is that Schumacher maybe just digs so deep to find that pace that it puts him up the front in qualifying, and he just physically cannot, and quite reasonably so, cannot maintain that throughout the race. But I would have thought the biggest factor is probably the engine.
Of the teams that are running, who's looking good and who's looking not so good? Williams are looking good, first and third. Ferrari not looking all that good, although Schumacher is second. Irvine is long since out of the race. Benetton not really looking good by their lofty World Championship standards of 1995. Fourth and fifth for Alesi and Berger. McLaren not looking at all good. Häkkinen is 52 seconds behind race leader Villeneuve, and Coulthard is out of the race.
And Benetton are getting ready for someone to come in. It could be Berger or Alesi, but I'd certainly favour Alesi. He's the one I'd expect to come in earlier. Now, what we need to look at is whether or not this is going to be his last stop or his penultimate one. If it's going to be around about 5 or 6 seconds, it will be, I think, the second of 3. If it's going to be more like 8 seconds, maybe 9 seconds, it'll be his last one. They might just be putting a lot of fuel in it for him to get to the end of the race. But Berger's looking in pretty good shape. He's only 4.5 seconds behind Alesi. And again, it's my suspicion that if this is Alesi, we'll see Berger stay out for another 5 laps to make sure that his next stop will indeed be his last.
Now, did you register that caption? Michael Schumacher only 5 seconds ahead of Damon Hill, with Alesi in the pits from 4th position and out. So Damon Hill now within striking distance of the Ferrari. Another 3 laps and he'll be up behind Michael Schumacher. But I hesitate to utter the cliche yet again, but that won't stop me from doing it. The cliche, of course, being catching is one thing and passing is another. And Michael Schumacher, seeing the prospect of 6 World Championship points for 2nd place rather than 4 for 3rd, if he lets Hill pass him, is going to be driving a very wide Ferrari. You can see that Frentzen in the Sauber, who has been lapped and is behind Michael Schumacher, is holding tolerably well with the Ferrari. Frentzen's last lap was about 1 minute 24.2, and Schumacher's last lap was 1 minute 23. Now there is Hill in the background. It was, and it's now under 4 seconds. So Damon Hill in 3rd position, closing on Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. This is lap 48. There's a long way to go. There's more pit stops to come. I'm not going to guess whether Schumacher's coming in or when he's coming in, or Damon Hill, but I am going to guess that in 2 or 3 laps time Michael Schumacher is going to see that Williams-Renault and that distinctive black and white helmet that mirrors the helmet of Damon's late great father Graham Hill, the colours of the London Rowing Club, the black with the white vertical stripes, and Schumacher's going to see that design in his mirrors very shortly. But first of all, Damon Hill has got to get past Heinz-Harald Frentzen Sauber. There it is. Frentzen is in 8th position. He's already been lapped once. He is 8 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, who is in 7th place. But the important thing is that Damon Hill is on him. Frentzen lets him through. No reason why he shouldn't. Every reason why he should.
So we're on lap 48 now. We've got Villeneuve, Schumacher and Hill, who've got another pit stop. 1 more pit stop each to go, and that'll be their 3rd one. We've also got Berger and Häkkinen, who so far only made 1 stop, and these two are going to be coming in, I reckon, about the next 3 or 4 laps. And that's going to put Berger, he's currently 14 seconds behind Häkkinen, It's going to put Berger and Häkkinen both behind a Lacey. By the look of it, I'm just having a look here. I think it will put Berger behind a Lacey, and I think from what we saw from a Lacey that he's got enough fuel to get to the end of the race, although he might just need a little bit towards the last 5-6 laps. I think that'll be an unlikely strategy for them to adopt, though, having said that.
Well, here's something to heighten the rivalry in the Williams team. And people often come up to me afterwards and say, you said that we made a very bad pit stop here. We didn't because so-and-so. Well, the fact is that Damon Hill's first pit stop was faster than that of Jacques Villeneuve, and his second pit stop was faster than that of Jacques Villeneuve. So, yeah, I'm only talking about tenths of a second, but they all matter. And here he is. It was 3.6 seconds between him and Schumacher, but he's closing, there's no doubt about that. Lap 49 then, there is the Ferrari, here is the Williams, second place Schumacher, who is coming up behind the Minardi of, I didn't see who it was, I just saw the Minardi, and I'll soon tell you whether it was Lavaggi or Pedro Lamy, because they are, no, Lami's out of the race, so it's Lavaggi, who is about to be lapped for the 4th time. Here he is, there is Lavaggi with the green wing, there is Schumacher, there is Damon Hill. Now, Giovanni, move over, Giovanni, move over. Hello, Giovanni, move over. Damon's getting closer, and Schumacher is being held up in these bends.
Now, it could be the smart thing to do for Williams to actually bring Hill in for his final stop now, as we watch Berger come in for his final stop. The reason being that two things. For one, Hill's actually caught up with Schumacher. We know he can lap faster. We know that Schumacher cannot himself go any faster. And therefore, Hill is destined 8 seconds, 8.7. That's enough for Berger to get to the end of the race. So that's him done and dusted on pit stops. Watch out for Mika Häkkinen. He's going to be coming in for his second and last one in the next few laps too. But as I say, Damon Hill could benefit from coming in now because he's going to get held up by Schumacher. He can get enough fuel into that car to get to the end. We've seen Berger do the same, so let's just see.
And what were those metallic spring-looking things as Berger came in and drove over them? They are earthing strips to get rid of any static that the car may have built up. And Jean Alesi passes Gerhard Berger, as does Mika Häkkinen. So there's a change in places as a result of Gerhard Berger's pit stop. Not unexpected, naturally. And now we can savour the battle between the double world champion who has won 20 Grand Prix, Michael Schumacher, and Damon Hill, who has yet to win a world championship but has won 20 Grand Prix, exactly the same number, 40 between the two of them. And they are the traditional rivals in Formula One these days. First and second in the World Championship last year and the year before. Frentzen into the pits from 8th position, a lap down. The only Sauber Ford still running with Johnny Herbert out of the race. 12 cars and drivers still competing. Damon, now, there's Barrichello trying to get past Katayama. Salo long out of the race. Now, they're having a race of their own. Coming up behind them are Schumacher. Now, Barrichello is going to be very interested in getting past the Tyrrell. He won't be nearly as interested in moving over and letting Schumacher through. And Schumacher's got Damon Hill right behind him.
Now, Schumacher and Hill both need to come into the pits now because these two ahead of them may well hold them up for some time. They may get by, but it's a big gamble. And if they come into the pits now, they can get enough fuel in to get to the end of the race comfortably, almost, and have the last stint, as long as it would be if it was going to be. And in goes a Jordan, so that's one of them out of the way. So that's one solution to it. So that's Barrichello in for his second and last stop. But Hill still needs to come in, even if Schumacher doesn't, because Hill is still going to get held up. So I will predict that Hill will be in the next 2 or 3 laps, or certainly the next 2 laps, maybe even the end of this lap.
Remember Australia, 94. Remember Silverstone, 95. Damon Hill trying to get past Michael Schumacher in a Benetton on both those occasions. Well, the situation is much the same now. The car is different as far as Michael Schumacher is concerned. Barrichello out of the pits. And now Katayama is the man that they've both got to get past. Ukyo Katayama from Japan, the best Grand Prix driver that Japan has ever produced. And both the Williams and the Ferrari pits are putting their mechanics out, as into the pit lane for a stop comes Mika Häkkinen, who was in 4th position as a result of the stops that had happened in front of him, moved up from 6th to 4th. And we're concentrating on this activity now, rather the producer is. And meantime, Damon Hill and Schumacher, I can't tell you whether they've got past. Yes, they have. They have both got past Ukko Katayama, who must have moved over to let them through, because the positions are exactly the same. And Frentzen is still in the pits, and it looks as though this time no Saubers are going to finish. And into the pits comes Michael Schumacher. Into second place goes Damon Hill. Now, if this is, well, and smoke from the front tyres of Michael Schumacher's car. Now, he rolls into the pit lane over those earthing strips, as usual. Back of the car up, front of the car up, 4 wheels off, 4 wheels on. Fuel filler in, fuel filler out. And away goes Michael Schumacher. Now, is he rejoining in front of... Yes, he's bound to retain his place.
Well, I think that was some real last-minute thinking, both from Ferrari and particularly from Damon Hill in Williams. And I suspect if Schumacher had stayed out, Hill would have come into the pit lane then and for his stop. We know the Williams crew were all out there. It's not for Villeneuve. We know it's there for Hill. And now Hill needs to stay out there, assuming he's got the fuel to do it. We know that his previous stop was a quick stop, so he can't have too much fuel in that car. He won't be able to stay out for very long as Frentzen's race comes to an end. But what he does need to do is get enough track advantage. He needs to punch in some fast laps now to make sure that he can get ahead of Schumacher when Hill does come in for his stop. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. We know that Hill was capable of lapping faster than Schumacher, and it looks clear that Schumacher was nearer the end of his fuel and therefore running at least as light as Hill. But Hill can't be too careful, and he needs to run now with clear track ahead of him for as long as he can, as long as his fuel load will allow, before coming in for his final stop. And by doing that, I'm sure that he'll be ahead of Schumacher when he comes out.
Well, unlike Germany and Silverstone, I'm not going to criticise Damon Hill's start, which cost him dearly, because I remind myself and you that he was on the dirty side of the track, which he was talking about so much, which gave Schumacher and Villeneuve that you're looking at an advantage when all the lights went out and the race started. And yet again, Tony Jardine is with Johnny Herbert, who is out of the race.
Johnny, it was going well, so great disappointment to retire.
No, it's a bit of a shame. You know, qualifying's gone very well. I wasn't very happy with the engine this morning, but they did some work, and it was good again in the race. But we'll have to see.
So what finally went?
The engine, which was a bit of a shame, because it just suddenly went.
Now, before that, you were battling away. Things seemed to be going all right.
Yeah, no, it was going good with Mika. The car had a good balance, but the engine let go. So, you know, when that happens, you can do nothing.
Can you use this engine again at Spa?
I hope so.
Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot.
Well, sad that both Johnny Herbert and Frentzen should go out. I'm sure with engine problems for them both, but that's no damnation at Ford there, because they worked very hard indeed to improve the performance. This has been the biggest step forward they've made all year, and it showed in qualifying. They knew they were taking a gamble racing it, and the fact that it's expired prematurely will not totally have surprised them, but they would have learned undoubtedly from it, and no doubt go better as the season goes on. But Hill is not likely to come back into the pits now. I can tell you that the Williams crew have gone back into the garage, so again Hill's going to be out there putting in those quick laps and well, possibly even closing on Villeneuve. Let's watch that gap too. I'm sure he's going to be clear of Schumacher when he comes out after his final stop, and he's 26.4 seconds behind Villeneuve yet. He's got no chance to catch Villeneuve, but he'll be keen to make a point and just show how quickly he could go.
As in Germany, so in Hungary, the two Benettons are together in the same order. Lacey ahead of Gerhard Berger, who so very nearly won the race in Germany until his engine blew. But Gerhard Berger has now got to make the decision, of course. They have got points for the team in 4th and 5th place. If he pushes Lacey hard and either or both of them go out, neither of them will get any thanks from the team, because 4th and 5th places would be very welcome. There are still 22 laps to go in the race. Villeneuve has stopped twice, leads Hill by 26.5 seconds, who has also stopped twice. Schumacher has made his last stop 3 times. Now he is 30 seconds behind Hill, 56 seconds behind Villeneuve, so it very clearly looks as though the race again is between the two Williams-Renault drivers, Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill. with Alesi 4th and 5th. That's Alesi ahead of us. We're in the car with veteran Gerhard Berger, who won his last Grand Prix for Ferrari, and that was in Germany 2 years ago. That was his 9th victory. He's certainly not going to win this race unless something very dramatic happens in front. Mika Häkkinen is again outdriven, not as a man, but the car, because although he's in sixth position in the points again, as he has been a good few times this year with 3rd, 4th, and a lot of 5th places, it's not going to be any consolation to him. He's a full lap behind. And in 7th position is Olivier Panis. 8th is Rubens Barrichello, who's been lapped. 9th, 10th and 11th. And the remaining runners are Katayama, Rosset and Lavaggi. So there are 9 retirements out of the 20 starters.
And with 20 laps left to go, we've got another pit stop yet for Damon Hill and for Jacques Villeneuve. Now Villeneuve being 26 seconds ahead, 25.6 seconds as my monitor changes in front of me. Villeneuve will be able to get into the pits and out again ahead of Damon Hill as we look at Gerhard Berger, have a bit of a slide there, chasing John Alesi. But that won't really matter because Hill's going to have to come in anyway. So I don't think we're going to see Hill be able to challenge in any way at all Villeneuve unless Villeneuve has a problem. So that's going to remain pretty much the same. Schumacher also has had his last stop and he's destined for 3rd, reliability allowing, and of course we know there's a big question mark about that. There's also a big question mark about, I think, about Jean Alesi. He's currently 4th. Gerhard Berger, as we see, is right on his tail. But the question is, does Alesi have to come into the pits for a bit more fuel or not? I find it hard to believe that Benetton, who are past masters of strategy, would have given him the strategy, or a strategy, requiring that to be the case. But on the other hand, he wasn't in the pits for very long on that last stop, and he was still had 30 laps to go to the end of the race. So that's one to watch out for, but certainly Villeneuve, certainly Hill are going to have to come in.
And as you've just seen, Jacques Villeneuve going round turn 1 at the end of the lap is not all that far behind Alesi and Berger, who are fighting for 4th position. That means to say he's nearly a lap ahead of him. Now, if things stay as they are now, the gap in the championship between Jacques Villeneuve, who is 2nd, and Damon Hill, who is leading the championship, will have been reduced to 17 points with 40 points still to win, so it's still absolutely wide open. Big problem for Villeneuve, of course, is that he doesn't know the brilliant Spa circuit in Belgium, which is the next race, but then not knowing Hungary doesn't seem to have been much of a problem for him. He qualified 3rd, could have taken pole position, and has brilliantly led the race for most of the way.
Well, Williams obviously ready there. I wonder if it's for Damon Hill, because he's far enough at 32 seconds ahead of Schumacher to have no problems getting out ahead of the German, whereas if they stop Villeneuve at the moment, that'll put him right back with Damon Hill, and they could probably do without, albeit the very slight chance of the 2 Williams drivers stumbling over each other into that first corner. Well, I was clearly wrong there, because there he is, Jacques Villeneuve coming in. Hill will be in surely in the next lap or so after that, and we're looking at about another 7-second stop to get Villeneuve to the end of the race. He's going to be coming out very close, I would have thought, to Damon Hill, and indeed just one further lap before Hill himself will pit. We saw, incidentally, Villeneuve give that jab of brakes. That's where the speed limit starts. There's 50 miles an hour speed limit in the pit lane, and that's necessary for safety reasons. There we are coming up. Well, it's quite a long stop. It's a long stop. It's a very long stop. There's a problem with the right rear wheel, and this is precious time. This is the opportunity that Damon Hill's going to be looking forward to. 14.8 seconds. That's 8 seconds longer as a result of that. Hill therefore goes through, so Hill now leads. Villeneuve in 2nd. Well, Villeneuve's lead was 16 seconds. He's had that cut back to what's going to be about 8 seconds, and this really could give Damon Hill the scent. He may yet be able to do something about it, though. Of course, Villeneuve will physically be in front on the track, but we could well see a tight finish to the race as a result of that. Problem with the right rear wheel nut on that Williams of Villeneuve.
Wheel nut seemed to be a Williams Achilles heel. It was here in Hungary in 1987 that Nigel Mansell lost a wheel nut from the front wheel to cause his retirement. He subsequently went on and won brilliantly for Ferrari in 1989. And then Mansell, of course, had a wheel nut problem in Portugal, and there have been others. I don't know why Williams would have the problem and not other people, but it does seem to affect them. As you watch Michael Schumacher, and he is circulating in about 1 minute 22 22.5 seconds. He's in third position. He is enough distance in front of Berger to hold the position, with Alesi fifth, and of course Damon Hill in the lead now with Jacques Villeneuve down to second place. If is Damon Hill coming in?
Now that view that we've got through the camera is probably not far off the view that Michael Schumacher may have through his visor. It's unbelievable, but despite having rip-offs on the front of the visor, once those have expired and you've thrown away your last one, I think Michael has looking at him, once you've thrown away your last one, the amount of debris and oil that builds up progressively on the visor is absolutely extraordinary. And as a driver, you get used to it. You get used to your vision being progressively more obscured. You adapt to it. And the real surprise comes at the end of the race. As you tour in after your final lap, you come back to the pits, into the Parc Fermé, lift your visor, and you cannot believe how little you could see when you see how much daylight there is without the visor. But Williams are having a look at getting ready. We just saw one or two of them coming out of the pit lane. We've got this final stop for Damon Hill to come. We wonder whether Jean Alesi will need to stop again. Berger's got ahead. Berger's ahead now of Jean Alesi. Well, it was really all a bit academic then for Jean Alesi. I suspect that he won't need to. And Berger proving there that his two-stop strategy worked well. Berger finished third in last year's Grand Prix after Schumacher had a very uncharacteristic problem with his Benetton-Renault. The fuel pump failed with 4 or 5 laps to go, handing third place to Berger. So it could just be the same here so far, because Schumacher, once again, is still going to be crossing his fingers, certainly mentally, that his Ferrari is going to keep going to the end of this race.
Lap 61, race leader, Damon Hill. Now, the gap was 14.4 seconds, and he's actually pulling away from Villeneuve on his new tyres, Damon Hill, because the gap has increased now to 15.5 seconds. Now, is Damon going to build up enough of a lead to be able to come in if he has to? Well, he would be looking for something of the order of 18-20 seconds, Jonathan?
I've got a little bit more than that, maybe 21. Now, this is going to be a worry for him. He's got one of the Minardis ahead of him, and it's Lavaggi. We know that Lavaggi has been good. He's let people by before, because the time that can get squandered just following Lavaggi or anybody else for albeit 2 or 3 corners, you can lose a second a corner, because he's lapping there. Lavaggi's lapping in 27. That's 6 seconds slower than Damon. Now let's have a look. Damon's last lap was a 1:21.0. Lavaggi hardly appeared to hold Hill up at all. Now we're going to find out just in reality how much he did hold him up, as he in the next few seconds, don't forget 21.0 was Hill's last lap. As he crosses the line, I can tell you that his time this lap was a 22.3. So he lost 1.3 seconds just like that, although it didn't look as if Lavaggi was even holding him up, certainly not more than one corner.
Well, Lavaggi may well repay Damon Hill by holding up Jacques Villeneuve, who's now, there he is, and he's about 14-15 seconds behind Damon Hill as a result of Damon's loss. It should be a bit of sauce for the goose and sauce for the gander. Now, there is Villeneuve. Hill is on his 62nd lap out of 77. Schumacher is still third, but Berger is catching. I have no doubt in my mind at all that Michael Schumacher is fighting some sort of a problem in the Ferrari. Maybe it's handling, because, as I said, the brilliance of Schumacher can overcome the deficiencies of the Ferrari for 1 lap. But to overcome them for 77 laps is a very different thing altogether. And Gerhard Berger has got the gap down now to under 19 seconds. And he's pulling away from Alesi, Berger that is. Alesi, who is 5th, and he's now 2 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. So, Damon Hill coming through to complete another lap. The gap was 14.8 seconds as a result of Hill being held up by Lavaggi. We haven't seen whether Villeneuve has caught the Italian yet, and the gap is, well, I have to wait for Villeneuve to come through. There is Hill out of turn 1 into turn 2. Schumacher still holding that position, and again Gerhard Berger, and the Villeneuve is about the same distance behind.
Williams crew coming out. This is for Hill. Hill is 15 seconds ahead of Villeneuve, so that's going to let Villeneuve through. Now, we thought about 21 seconds, so that should end up with Villeneuve having about a 6-second lead over Damon Hill with some 15 laps to go. And that's the kind of lead that can be so easily lost with back markers. That could yet happen. A half spin from Villeneuve. He has been prone to having the odd incident. but he's going to put him still. He's going to put Hill, I should say, well ahead of Schumacher. Schumacher's 42 seconds behind Damon, so he'll still end up being some 20 seconds behind. So it's all about making it as sharp as possible, of course, getting into that pit lane, getting the brakes on for that speed limit zone, because the last thing that Hill wants now is a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and we've seen that happen from time to time. Through the last second gear corner, up the hill to third gear, and peeling off into the pit lane. Is it now? No, he's not. Yes, he is. He's coming in. And we're looking for about, probably about 6 seconds. This could be a very quick one because we're beyond the 75% distance. And he's going to want every little bit of time he can get. See the black marks where odd cars, we saw Schumacher lock the wheels in a desperate attempt to make sure they get the speed right down. In he comes to a stop. Now let's watch that right rear wheel. We know that that was a problem on Villeneuve's car. And this is the kind of mistake, well, it was very quick indeed, no problems at all. He keeps the same tyres on. Now, that's interesting.
Villeneuve has gone through. Now, there is Villeneuve, and here is Damon Hill. That's how close it is going to be. Remember, Damon Hill is still in the 75-mile-an-hour zone. He isn't now. He's out and will be giving it everything he's got. But on lap 64, Jacques Villeneuve retakes the lead in Hungary with 13 laps to go. Damon Hill in second place, very close, and he is, of course, on new tyres. Michael Schumacher limping along in comparative terms, still on the podium, but in the background you can see how close Gerhard Berger is, because Berger in fourth position, very close indeed to the Ferrari, but the battle up front is the one that's going to have everybody's attention with just those 14 laps to go in Hungary. Damon Hill has won this race twice. He won it last year and he won it in 1993. Michael Schumacher won it in 94 for Benetton and Lavaggi. Now this is Lavaggi holding up Villeneuve. Remember, he held up Hill, not very much. Back again with Michael Schumacher. And this should be Villeneuve's opportunity. It's a good place to get past the Minardi. It's got a V8 engine, and the Renault of Villeneuve with the V10 should just punch its way past him, and it does so. And now the roles are reversed. The boot is on the other foot, because the Damon Hill is going to have to pass Lavaggi again. Mr. Lavaggi could well be the man who inadvertently decides who is going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. The gap between Villeneuve and Damon Hill was 6.6 seconds. And they are now the race leaders on lap 65 out of 77, with Michael Schumacher right out of it, over 40 seconds down.
Yeah, a similar 1 second actually lost by Villeneuve with Lavaggi there, and of course Damon Hill did change the tyres and is on new tyres, and that's what he's going to need, every bit of grip to try and close that gap up there now, the 6.6 seconds, and he's now just got 13 laps to try and do something about it. We can see the brackets are the time that it was at the split. It was 6.5, it's now down to 5.5. Damon is going to be really determined. He will know, I think, in his heart of hearts, that he's not going to get by Jacques Villeneuve unless Jacques makes a mistake, which is always possible. He's not going to get by him. What he'd love to do is make a point here and just prove how quick he is. We've seen him put in some absolutely fantastic race stints. The mid-stint that he did at the German Grand Prix was sensational. Hill really is exceedingly quick, and he's going to make that point, I believe, in the next 13 laps. He's not going to want to take any chances. He wants to go for points, he knows that, and now it's Damon Hill who's got there, Lavaggi. Now, look at the marbles on the left-hand side. Hill goes on them, and Berger goes out.
Gerhard Berger out in Hungary. He was in fourth position. That's the second race in succession, I'm guessing, but if it is his engine, he's not going to be at all pleased, because it cost him the German Grand Prix. Now it certainly cost him points for fourth position in Hungary, but Damon Hill, is he past Lavaggi or not? He got the gap down to 4, and there's a replay. The engine goes in Berger's Benetton.
Well, that means that Williams are the Constructors' champion now, and that looks just like the incident we saw in Germany, which I think was a cylinder head fault problem that then got into the top of the engine and caused the engine to destroy itself, and that's exactly what's happened there. Now that's going to elevate Alesi, of course, up to fourth, Häkkinen into fifth, and Olivier Panis into sixth. But the gap from Villeneuve to Hill is now just 4.8 seconds. Villeneuve will be aware, clearly, and it's 4.8 seconds on my screen at the end of the lap. I know you're looking at 5.8 there, but that's at a different point on the circuit.
Yeah, but Lavargi undoubtedly cost Hill time, something of the order of a second. But we're going to see now exactly what the situation is, because into his 66th lap goes Jacques Villeneuve, and here, bearing down on him, and as you can see, catching him 0.4 of a second, is Damon Hill. But he can whittle away at Villeneuve's lead, and even if he gets the nose of the Williams tucked under the diffuser of Jacques Villeneuve's car in front of him, if Villeneuve just holds his line, as Thierry Boutsen did in 1990 in a Williams, then it's going to be Villeneuve's race, because Boutsen just stolidly, in a slower car than Ayrton Senna behind him in the McLaren, held his line, and even the brilliance of Senna couldn't get past the Belgian. And Damon Hill is really going for it. You saw him climbing the curbs there.
Yes, I think Hill's going to be right up with Villeneuve in the closing few laps of this race, but he's going to have a bit of a dilemma as to what he does about it. If it had been Schumacher ahead of him, I'm quite sure he would have settled for second place without any doubt at all, because Schumacher is no championship threat. Having said that, I still don't think he's going to be taking any chances. He still leads the championship, of course. He has 73 points. Villeneuve has 62. Now, if the result, or if the order stays as it is now, and Villeneuve wins from Hill, that's going to leave Hill on 79 points, Villeneuve on 62. It'll allow Villeneuve to eat into Hill's lead, but there are only 4 Grand Prix left after that, and at 10 points for a win, that's 40 points on the table, and Damon will have a 17-point lead, and that's fairly comfortable. But the main point I think he'll want to make is the fact that he can actually be quicker than Villeneuve. On the other hand, Villeneuve will say, well, I didn't need to go any faster. I knew that Damon wouldn't be able to get by me. Damon drove very well indeed, but I just made sure that I won my second Grand Prix, my third Grand Prix of the year, because, of course, Villeneuve won at the Grand Prix of Europe at Nürburgring, and he won in Britain too at Silverstone.
And Damon Hill, as you see, is fastest. He's very nearly the first man to go under 1 minute 20, 1 minute 20.093. Now, that was 9/10 of a second faster than Villeneuve. But, as Jonathan says, Jacques Villeneuve, who is a master tactician, even though this is only his 12th Grand Prix, he's been racing quite a long time in Formula Atlantic and in Formula 3 and in sports cars, and of course in Indy racing, where tactics are all, is more than capable of working out exactly how things are going. Now, there is Rosset, and Damon Hill has got a problem with the Arrows now, as he had with Lavargi. Past he goes. The gap was 4.5 seconds, and Damon is quickest. And you can see now that it is now under 3 seconds, and we have still got 9 laps of this race left.
Now, it'd be reasonable to question at this point, what about team orders? Why don't the Williams team simply get Jacques Villeneuve? Oh, look at him have a slide there. He's really pushing hard. There's no hanging about from Villeneuve. Why don't Williams just hang out the Villeneuve, hang out a sign of Villeneuve saying, let Damon Hill by to help his championship chances? Well, the reason is, and I don't think there will be any team orders for one moment, a couple of things. Firstly, Williams are an incredibly sporting team. They've always gone through their racing career letting their drivers crash it out on the track, rather than having team orders affect it, certainly as much as they possibly can. And the other point is that there's no other team who's going to challenge the World Championship for Hill. Ferrari aren't going to, Benetton aren't going to. The only challenge to Damon Hill is from Jacques Villeneuve. So either way, a Williams is going to win the Drivers' World Championship this year.
Look at that. Hill knows he can catch Villeneuve, but he doesn't know he can get past him. This is lap 69. Coming up to the completion of into lap 70, 77 lap race, and I'm very shortly not going to be bothering to tell you what the gap is in terms of time. You'll be able to see more than well enough what the gap is in terms of distance. And Damon Hill now faces the prospect of the implacable Villeneuve refusing, totally justifiably, to modify his line to let Damon Hill pass, because if he does, although it would help Damon Hill's championship chances, it would deter Villeneuve's, and Villeneuve knows he can still win this championship if he can keep up the sort of record that he has achieved with possibly a third win here today.
Now, things are going to get interesting, I think, in about 4 laps' time, because then these two are going to come up across Mika Häkkinen. Häkkinen currently in 5th place in his McLaren. Now, he was only running a 2-stop strategy. Williams have run a 3-stop. So the Williams cars are quicker than the McLaren, apart from the fact they are anyway. They've also got tyres in better condition because they stop later. They're lapping a 2.5 seconds faster, so we're going to get a bit of a queue. Now, the question is, how quickly will Mika Häkkinen that's Patrick Head talking, the technical director of Williams, to Dickie Stanford, the team manager. And I think they're pretty relaxed about it. Not as relaxed as Jacques Villeneuve. We see him again lock a wheel. We see that often with Villeneuve. He's not as stylish a driver as Damon Hill. Damon Hill very much in the Prost mould, never looks particularly hairy, but deceptively quick with it. Whereas Villeneuve is all kind of arms and elbows, locking wheels, clipping the curbs, and generally has not gone quite as fast. He's harder on the car than Damon. He jabs on the throttle harder. He jabs on the brakes harder. Now, all of which means that his cars, I think, do get a harder time, and often Villeneuve upsets the car in just little tiny ways that just mean that he can't go quite as quickly as the very super smooth Damon Hill. But worth bearing in mind, too, that both these drivers will be absolutely worn out. Well, having said that, they probably look fresh as a daisy out of the car, but this is a long, long race. They've been racing now for 1 hour and 40 minutes, and this is the most physical circuit, I would say, of anywhere on the Grand Prix calendar. It's some 28 degrees out there. They've been stuck into their cockpits, 3 layers of Nomex overalls, their balaclava, their helmet, their visor, their gloves. There's no skin available for surface area, heat exchange. They're going to be very hot, easy to make a mistake. And that's what Damon's going to be hoping Villeneuve will do.
Coming up towards the completion of lap 71 with 6 laps then to go. And to underline what Jonathan was saying, I was talking to Alain Prost yesterday about his time with Damon Hill in 1993 when Prost won the World Championship, and of his own volition he was so impressed with Damon Hill that although Damon was supposed to be, and was in fact, number 2 to Prost, Prost asked that he be given number 1, equal number 1 status. So Paul Edwards, the fat controller, as he's called in the Williams team because he does their catering, holds out the board which tells Damon Hill that he's 1.2 seconds behind Jacques Villeneuve. A bit irrelevant. As far as Damon's concerned, he can see exactly where Villeneuve is, and he's going for it. Lap 72, and Prost also said there's been a lot of rubbish talk to Schumacher. Michael Schumacher retires from the Hungarian Grand Prix, as did Eddie Irvine, and that makes, gosh, I'm losing count now. This is what, 9 retirements from 10 starts for Ferrari. Believe me, this doesn't please me any more than it will please Ferrari fans all around the world. But the fact, obviously, is that Schumacher was struggling all the way for a long, long time, and that Ferrari is still very, very fragile. A lot to do, bitter disillusionment, bitter disappointment for Ferrari, but Alesi goes up into 3rd position, so Renault engines are now 1st, 2nd and 3rd. They've had a 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th this season, and this is what Jonathan prophesied. There is Häkkinen being caught by Jacques Villeneuve. Mika Häkkinen moves over but has to take the racing line on the corner to go round. I've no doubt that he'll let Damon Hill through as well, and he does so. Damon Hill goes through on the inside. This is lap 72, and you're going to see a tremendous fighting finish to the Hungarian Grand Prix. Just to put you in the rest of the picture, Alesi is 3rd. Häkkinen has been lapped and is in 4th position. No consolation for him there. Schumacher is out, so up to 5th goes Panis, up to 6th goes Barrichello, up to 7th goes Katayama, up to 8th goes Rosset, up to 9th, the last runner on the track of the 20 who started, goes Giovanni Lavaggi, and there is the race.
Well, that's a nice surprise for Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill. I bet they didn't think that was going to be that easy. Well, they've got Ukyo Katayama next, and ahead of Katayama is Barrichello, and both of these, Katayama lets them go by, but actually Villeneuve's had to go offline there. You see the dust come up, well, that's going to lose Villeneuve a little bit of performance from his car. Similarly, though, that's going to afflict Damon Hill, but critically they are both ahead. You see how Damon slid then through that chicane? That's a consequence of just getting offline. He died again. You know, he got offline, he had to get offline to go by Katayama. It was a calculated gamble. It was worth going offline to get by quickly, but then he's lost some grip. Both have lost a little bit of grip. It looks like it's affected Damon Hill a little bit more than Jacques Villeneuve, because the gap seems to have increased. It has indeed, 0.3 of a second. That was a good race from Gerhard Berger. He's been deprived of good results, hasn't he, the last couple of races? He did so well in Germany, deserved to win there before his engine expired, and he would have been third as it happened. I know a lot of people can say that, but with Schumacher's demise, the Benettons normally are very, very reliable, and it seems coincidental that it's Berger's Renault engine and not Villeneuve's, Hill's, or Alesi's that's had a problem.
You could see his utter dejection from his body language, totally downcast, and with every justification. He has had a lot of trouble settling down in the Benetton team, as has Jean Alesi. I heard a very amusing, but I fear unrepeatable story about Jean Alesi at one of the tests recently, but which was a bit of temperament. But they are now showing signs of settling down, and if there are changes in the Benetton team's driver lineup next year, which are being talked about, it would seem odd, because the team and the drivers have invested a lot, and locks up. Villeneuve locks up. You can see how hard he's trying. This is lap 74. It's still Alesi third, Häkkinen, Panis, Barrichello, but all the action is up at the front, and they're coming through to start lap 75.
Now, Villeneuve doesn't actually need to try that hard at the moment. He doesn't need to be, and indeed shouldn't be breaking that late, that he's locking up. Because even if he backed off a second a lap, there's no way that Damon Hill's going to get by, and Damon's biggest opportunity will come in such a manoeuvre as if Villeneuve does lock up. And indeed, he'd actually be better off just slowing up a little bit so that they don't come across Rubens Barrichello, because it's the fumbling over a back, well, you can hardly call Barrichello a back marker, although Jordan's performance has been well off the pace this weekend. It's the fumbling over someone that you're trying to lap can provide opportunity. We've seen Hakkinen move out of the way very graciously. We've seen them sweep past Ukio Katayama's Tyrrell, but it might not be the same there with Rubens Barrichello. Well, they're right up behind him. We're going to find out now.
Now, is Rubens going to move over? He's one of the chaps who's rumoured to be out of Formula One next year, possibly to go to Indy racing. There's the answer. He does so. And you may say, if this circuit is so dusty and it's the same every year, why on earth don't they clean it before the race? Well, I think that's a very good question, and I would like to know the answer to it as well. But the fact is that it is, and it remains very dusty, and if you get off the racing line, you raise the dust can get in your tyres, you lose grip as a result of that, and if you lose grip, then you've got a major problem. So this is the completion of lap 75 into lap 76, and it's a 77-lap race, and there are the men who are first and second. It's seemingly going to be another Williams-Renault 1-2. I'll have to check, but I think that will be the fourth of the season. But whatever, who is going to win? I can't see, it's the fifth of the season. I can't see anybody other than Jacques Villeneuve winning, because I do not believe that Damon is going to risk losing points altogether when he's got 6 within his grasp, and there are still 4 races to go.
Yeah, we can see that there. Damon settled for second. He's done the right thing. He's not going to take any chances. And what a wonderful Williams formation finish. What a great way to celebrate the winning the Constructors' Championship. But Villeneuve's done everything right here. He did very, very well in qualifying. OK, he was third, but he was within a 1/10.5 of a second of poleman on his first visit. And what he did, crucially, was get off the line properly. He started well, made good use of being on the right side of the grid, and has done everything right on the way to winning this race. Damon Hill, meanwhile, did well in qualifying, second place. He was on that bad side of the grid. There was little he could do about the start, but he's driven superbly in the race. He's done as much as he could in this particular occasion, and it's merely the fact that he can't overtake because of the nature of the circuit that's going to mean that he's going to finish second. But he will nevertheless still maintain that 17-point lead in the championship. Schumacher showed that Ferrari are making progress, at least in qualifying. I'm not entirely convinced about the race. The Ferrari fragility still seems to be there. We saw it with the demise of Irvine and Schumacher, but nevertheless Ferrari are closing that gap, albeit with the masterful efforts of Schumacher at the wheel. Whereas behind that, and third place there, Alesi once again being the person that seems to bring these Benettons to the flag. I can't believe it's anything to do with Berger being hard on the car, but that's going to continue to close Alesi up. He's solidly in third place in the championship. Another 4 points will put him even more solidly in that position.
A wonderful, wonderful way for Williams to win their 8th Constructors' World Championship with a maximum 16 points, seemingly 10 from Jacques Villeneuve and 6 from Damon Hill. They only needed 2 points, even if both the Benettons had finished in first and second places. But now, with Alesi in third position and Berger out of the race, the Constructors' Championship is most certainly for Williams, but the Drivers' Championship is still wide open, especially if they finish in the order that they are in now, and they're going to do that because Villeneuve is up into the last corner. He's going to win his third Grand Prix of the year and his first year of Grand Prix racing. Jacques Villeneuve wins in Hungary and beats Damon Hill by 6/10 of a second. As close as that. Maximum points for Williams. It reduces that World Championship gap between Villeneuve, who is still second, and Damon Hill, who still leads, to a mere 17 points, with 40 points still to be won. The championship is wide open. Häkkinen finishes in fourth position, a full lap down. McLaren and Mercedes have still not got the answer. John Alesi finishes in third position. There he is in the Benetton-Renault. And Panis will finish, has finished indeed, because he's been lapped. In fifth position in the Ligier, with Rubens Barrichello again getting a point. But just as this race result is not of any great interest to McLaren and Mercedes, with one car out and Häkkinen only fourth, a lap down. So this race is not going to be of very much interest to Jordan, sadly, with Martin Brundle out when he went off the track in the early stages. And Barrichello 2 laps down. Jacques Villeneuve, we're riding on the Williams-Renault now, and he waves to the crowd. A lot of them will not be giving the sort of wave back that he would like to see, because there is a gigantic German content in this Hungarian crowd, and what they wanted to see was their Schumi doing well. Well, their Schumi, Michael Schumacher, has done very badly with his 7th retirement in his 11th race for Ferrari.
Let's just watch Alesi there. He seems to be driving in the marbles, and one of the reasons that is done, actually, is to pick up bits of the rubber on your tyres, because you can add to the weight of the car. And if there are any concerns about being light on weight, by driving through the marbles, picking up another 2 or 3 kilos, it might just make the difference.
Just shows you what you have to think about if you're a race driver. And of course, one of the many things you have to think about is where he is now, although it doesn't consider. That's the white line which indicates where the pit lane starts, and you've got to remember to hit the rev limiter in time to bring your speed down to 75 miles an hour. So into the Parc Fermé, where their cars will be examined minutely, and the drivers will be weighed as usual to make sure that the combined weight of the car and driver does not is not less than the limit. Damon Hill draws up second. There's a sad sight for Ferrari fans. Michael Schumacher being pulled in on the end of a tow rope. The last time that happened to him was the German Grand Prix last year, when he won the race in a Benetton, but stalled his engine as he stopped to take some applause. And Tony Jardine is with Patrick Head, who is the technical boss of Williams, who have just won the Constructors' Championship.
First of all, Patrick, many congratulations indeed on the World Constructors' Championship. I believe for the 8th occasion. You must be very, very happy about that.
Yep, can't complain. I mean, I think we just looked at this as another race, so the main thing is we're pleased to get first and second, but the Constructors' Championship, as it says, is for the team, and the team have done a fantastic job this year. We've really improved right across the board this year from last year, and they've all done a very good job.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, back to your drivers. Jacques did a brilliant job here. He hasn't been here before.
Yes, I mean, in general, he's sometimes had a few problems at some of the new circuits, but he really got the bit between his teeth and got this circuit sorted out quite early on, which I must say surprised us, because it's quite a tricky little circuit, but he did a very good job, and in truth, the result came from he made a better start than Damon, although Damon, from his grid position, was a bit higher. This track, because it's so dusty, he was on the dustier side of the track, so maybe Damon would have preferred to have been third on the grid.
17 points between them. The championship's still wide open. Still no team orders in the future?
No, there's nothing in their contracts, and obviously I think the Drivers' Championship is between them now. It would be, put it like this, if we started putting a board out, I rather think it would be ignored, and I think maybe the principle of good management is to not try and achieve what isn't going to work, so there won't be any team orders.
Little drink for the boys tonight, perhaps?
Oh, I'm sure they'll have a, you know, actually there might be a Karl-Heinz Zimmermann Schnaps waiting down there for me, but I'm sure there'll be a bit of alcohol drunk.
Many congratulations. Thanks for talking to us, Patrick.
Not with any driving afterwards, I might say.
Quite right.
Thank you.
How very diplomatic of Patrick Head. And Dickie Stanford, you just saw him, the Williams team manager. A very gaunt-looking Damon. He hasn't got an ounce of fat on him these days. He does about 5 or 6 hours of training. He is monumentally fit, especially for that run up the steps to the podium to join Jacques Villeneuve after the young Canadian's brilliant third race victory. A sad disappointment for Michael Schumacher. He keeps on saying we must work harder and improve, but surely even Schumacher, with his dogged determination, is going to get a bit depressed at what keeps on happening to him and his Ferrari teammates. So sadness for Schumacher, joy for Jacques Villeneuve and for Damon Hill in his usual driving suit, which looks as though it's been made for 2 other chaps much bigger than him. Jacques Villeneuve gets on the top row, the top step. Damon Hill second, Jarno Lacey third. Williams-Renault wins, Williams-Renault second, Benetton-Renault third. Canada for Jacques Villeneuve, richly deserved, and now for Britain, the national anthem for Williams. Foreground, Mr. Gyula Horn, who is the Prime Minister of Hungary, will present all the trophies to Jacques Villeneuve for winning the Hungarian Grand Prix, his third Grand Prix victory in his first year. Magnificent. To Damon Hill for his second, no, to Dickie Stanford for Williams for the Constructors' Championship and first and second places in Hungary. To Damon Hill for second position, which reduces his World Championship lead over his teammate to 17 points, and to Jean Alesi, who is third for the 4th time this year. Surely his chance will come. But it didn't come here in Hungary. A great race for Williams, a great race for Damon Hill, and especially Jacques Villeneuve, and a great race too, above all, for Formula One.
Be a while before they dry out and the celebrations die down, but you'll hear from both Damon Hill and race winner Jacques Villeneuve, both in Grand Prix tonight, 8 BBC 2, and also on Sunday Grandstand, currently on BBC 2. But an excellent race and an outstanding one for Williams. Their 5th 1-2 of the season, 3rd Grand Prix victory of the season for Jacques Villeneuve by the slimmest of margins from Damon Hill, but Villeneuve always in control of the race. Häkkinen, Panis and Barrichello complete the point scorers. Drivers' Championship still very much alive and getting pretty tense for Damon Hill, 17 points ahead, and he can't afford to finish behind Jacques Villeneuve in too many of the 4 remaining Grand Prix. Constructors' title for the 8th time for Williams, and a season that they've absolutely dominated with those 4 Grand Prix still remaining. So that was Hungary. The next Grand Prix is the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa in a fortnight's time. We will, of course, have the usual live coverage, but the afternoon sport continues with Test cricket, the second Test from Headingley, currently on BBC 2, Sunday grandstand, but from us all on Grand Prix, it's goodbye for now. Bye-bye.
I'm very happy because, first of all, for the championship, we had to beat Damon while he was still on the racetrack, so it's a good feeling to do that. And this is not the type of track that I normally enjoy. So being competitive here, you know, makes me really happy. The team did a great job all weekend, and we were right away from the pace.
I got a poor start and paid the price. I got held up by Jarno, who was doing exactly what I'd expect him to do, which was to hold his line. But I mean, he was going a lot slower, so I lost a lot of track time. But for me, I think I enjoyed the race. I had lots to do. You know, there was a lot of communication between myself and the pit wall, trying to work out the best strategy. It was very interesting trying to deal with Michael. And of course, you know, I closed in on Jacques right towards the end, and I think I had a great race, and I'm delighted for the team to have sewn up the Constructors' Championship and also finished with another 1-2.
At any stage, would you have challenged Jacques for the lead, or were you under team orders, or what was the position there when you caught up with him at the end?
No. I mean, I was aiming to put Jacques under pressure and chase him to the finish.
I did a good start. I was straight away 3rd. So because of characteristic of the track, you are not able to overtake. I keep this position to the first stop, and then I was 4th. And because Michael retired, I went on this podium. So actually, I'm very happy. I'm very pleased for the team because they worked very hard all the weekend. Since the first day, the car was really difficult to drive, and at the end, we are again on a podium. So if we can keep this 2nd place for the championship for the team constructor, would be very good.
The only people who can win the World Championship for the drivers now is you or Jacques. What's your feeling towards the last few races?
Well, I think it's going to be great for the viewers. It's going to be pretty tough for the 2 of us, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a thrilling last 4 races, I think it is now, yeah.
A thrilling, fighting finish sees Canada's Jacques Villeneuve masterfully win his 3rd Grand Prix in his first season, just 0.8 of a second ahead of Damon Hill after a great drive by Hill following a poor start. Jarno takes his 7th podium finish of the season in 3rd place, the last man to go the full distance. Mika Häkkinen 4th and Olivier Panis 5th, both a lap down, with Rubens Barrichello 6th, 2 laps adrift. Only 2 men in it for the Drivers' Championship now. Down comes Hill's lead by 4 points to 17 ahead of Villeneuve, with 40 points still to be won. Alesi and Schumacher hold their places, but Mika Häkkinen moves ahead of teammate David Coulthard to 5th. It's a definite Constructors' Championship for Williams, though, their 8th of a magnificent history, with Benetton 90 points behind. And just 1 point now, separating Ferrari and McLaren. Off to Belgium now for round 13 on the world's finest Grand Prix circuit at Spa-Francorchamps. Villeneuve could reduce Hill's lead even further there, in which case you can watch him do so. See the qualifying live on BBC 2 on Saturday, and the race live, of course, on BBC 1. We'll be there.